Welcome back to the SPL Phase 2, Week 1, Day 2. And as you just saw, you too can master all 4 elements on the Battleground of the Gods. With this new Avatar Battle Pass, you unlock Zuko Susanoo right away as soon as you pick up the pass, and then you can unlock Avatar Aang, Merlin, as well as Korra Scotty along the way as you progress throughout that track. So make sure that you're picking it up. I can't think of any reason why you would not want to. One of the very best shows from our childhoods. Making it into SMITE has made me personally very happy. I'm still joined here on the desk, though, by Mifflin as we move on to the second set of the day. There's going to be Sanguine up against Renegades. And I think after Sanguine's big Phase 1, Miff, we can finally start to say Sanguine are the favorites here into this matchup against Renegades.
Look, I didn't think that we were going to see two 2-0s today, but now I can say that I do think we will see two 2-0s. Sanguine was looking absolutely dominant in Phase 1. Their team play is just about unmatched post 25 minutes, was they can roam around as a team. I mean, these guys are really strong, and I'm sure some of the fans at home saw Final K's SPL player tier list, and Sanguine had 4 out of 5 in the top spots just off of Final K. That's a lot of respect.
It is, and you know Final K is the type of person that will evaluate those players objectively, and he knows the relative strength of those players. I think that is part of what makes Sanguine so difficult to beat. As you saw, they are going to be the final set that we do here today up against Renegades, is that all 5 of the players are individually strong, obviously, but then when they Voltron together, they make this whole that is greater than the sum of its parts. I mean, it's so excellent what they're able to do together in the late game in particular. Their team fight focus, their objective focus, at times it feels unmatched.
It really does. I mean, these guys know exactly what they need to do in the early game. No one's trying to play the heroic role, and that means that they're not really making any mistakes. They know that their strategy is, okay, guys, what do we want to do? Well, we want to get to 30 minutes and play around each other. All right, let's do it. Let's not do anything risky in the early. We'll block in Jing Wei and Hunter roll so he can run away. We'll play these nice escape mids like Merlin or Raijin for... That reasoning alone is just, we want to lock down these waves, run away, get ready for 30 minutes, then move into the objectives. And I think Sanguine really nailed down their identity as a team very early on in the SPL.
Yeah. And there's a lot of teams that are still struggling in that regard. That's a great thing to point out, Mifflin. This Sanguine roster is a team that knows who they are, and they play to those strengths. And again, you don't have to take just my word on it. Earlier today, I had a chance to sit down with Yar Core and see exactly how the team was feeling. All right, I have Yarkor here with me, solo laner for Sanguine. If you notice the sign in the back, #1, at least back in Phase 1. But the question is, how's that going to work for you all translating here into Phase 2? And I want to ask you, first of all, do you all consider Phase 1 a success? I mean, you came in with no expectations, or #1 overall, and then got, I think, tied for 3rd place in the playoffs. How do you all feel about that Phase 1?
I mean, it wasn't expected for sure. Like, we finished in #1 in the first phase. It was, I mean, it was incredible for us. I mean, we like still rather do more in the mid-season tournament, but we like just took the win of getting first place over all the other teams in the regular season. So that's nice for us.
Well, a lot has changed since then with this mid-season update, right? Hunter builds are very different now, jungle builds are different, and then for you, there's some changes over in solo, right? I mean, even Glad Shield being changed the way that it started. So how do you feel personally, and then as the team as a whole, that you all have grasped some of these new changes coming into your first match? Do you feel like you're on them entirely, or maybe it'll still take a couple of sets to fully see where everything's at?
I think we're gonna figure out things in time. Like, we're ready, like, for what is gone, but I think with time we're gonna be like better, like way better.
All right, it sounds like that's a pretty common sentiment among some of the other teams that we were talking to. What about just Phase 2 in general? I feel like it's way more of a grind this time. It's obviously longer. You play everybody 3 times for this one. Do you guys feel like you're ready for that many kind of all-important sets all in a row?
Yeah, I think we're ready. I think, like, I mean, even in the break, we will like still play in the game. So we grinded that ranked game. So I mean, I think we're ready for what is come right now.
Well, your first set is up against Renegades. And I think after Phase 1, we should definitely say you all are favorite here in this matchup, at least based off that performance. Do you all feel any different coming into Phase 2 and with more expectations around the team after your good Phase 1 performance?
Yeah, I think this is a different game. like so different before the phase one with all the mid-season patch, with all the mid-season changes. Like it feels like a different game. Like we were like so excited when they start talking about the changes, the items, like everything. So I think gonna be like different. Gonna be like a new set, but I think we're gonna win. Like,
Is there any change in particular that's really got you excited, Yarko? I mean, I got to be thinking maybe less King Arthur can't be a bad thing for you over there in solo. But is anything else that maybe you're a bit excited to play?
I mean, I love the new god, like Cthulhu. Like
Yeah.
I feel it's so fun to play. Like I mean, so I so excited that I could be able to play that god. So I think that is the main thing.
Hey, I think we'd all love to see that too, Yarkor, if you could get your hands onto that new god. So maybe, hopefully, that'll happen. And we'll get a
Hopefully.
chance to see you. Any particular maybe prep that you all did for Renegades in particular, or are you all going to try and go in business as usual for that one?
I think we that is like normal us. We all do normal smite. Like we pick what is OP and we just play the game of that. So that is what we want to do. Let's see how it works.
Exactly. Glad to see y'all haven't changed too much in the break, Yarkor. I love to see it, man. Good luck in your next match, and thanks for taking the time
Thank
to
you.
talk with me.
Thank you.
Well, that's what we know from Sanguine. They're not going to surprise you. They're going to play the good stuff really, really well. Glad to see they have that exact same identity coming into Phase 2 here, and they're going to need it going up against Renegades, a team that I think started to look a lot better towards the end of Phase 1. I know it was a bit shaky, but they've looked improved.
They really have been. I mean, Lazar's been a constant pillar of that squad, constantly finding pressure out throughout the jungle. Early duo lane ganks, kind of Lazar's bread and butter. And I think Awesome Jake 408 has really started to gel out with Barracuda in that lane. They've really had some really strong synergy.
They did. I'm glad you brought up Austin Jake because I think coming in, there were a lot of question marks around this guy, but those should go away from me. He's no longer a reason that they're going to be losing games or a detriment. This guy is an asset in every single meaning of the word, I would say now. I think you can count on Awesome Jake bringing his own unique style and playing a more traditional sort of supporting type of way as well, too. He's very flexible for them. I think what they really need to make sure they have up to scratch, though, is the full 3v3 synergy. How well are Vin, Lasbra, and Awesome Jake going to all play together?
Yeah, that's yet to be seen. I mean, it depends on how much they've practiced over this break, but even towards the tail end of Phase 1, these guys have been working really well together. And I remember in an interview during Phase 1, Lazarus said that he loves playing around Jake, and I'm sure that's a sentiment shared by the rest of that crew. You don't make it onto a team on accident, right? So Jake should be able to work well in that 3v3. Against Sanguine's 3v3, though, might be a tall task.
It is. That's about as tough of a 3v3 as it comes on the side of Sanguine. But the Renegades guys, I think, are well confident. I had a chance to talk with Venenu a little bit earlier today, so take some listen here to his thoughts. All right, well, I have Venenu here, mid laner for Renegades. And then I want to ask you all, because I asked everybody about Phase 1. I know it didn't go the way that you all wanted to, especially with not getting to have SOT for playoffs. But I do think you all were looking better at the end of the phase. I don't think you could argue that. Are you all going to be able to bring that momentum in here to Phase 2, where you all have been improving at least?
Yeah, our scrims have been going really, really well since we've started anyway. And definitely one thing that stinks a little bit is like you're not really losing scrims that much, so you can't really tell it's like super OP and it's not super OP. But like, right. I think our synergy is actually really, really good for like the short time we have been scrimming, and you know, we've been grinding ranked and everything, like talking with each other, keeping the synergy together, and you know, just making sure everybody's like happy and you know, make sure everybody's mental is okay, especially with like being in quarantine and everything. You know, that's definitely important. So everybody's just trying to be friends with each other and like keep everybody's morals up and everything like that.
That's huge. I'm glad to hear you all are focusing on that aspect of it too, Vin. That's good looks. But more like, I guess, with the X's and O's, a lot has changed with this mid-season update for Hunter builds. Some has changed for the mid builds there as well. Definitely with the junglers, you have to worry about avoiding. How do you feel about you personally, and then the team as a whole has adjusted to these new changes? Do you think you'll need a couple of sets, or are you all on top of it right from the beginning?
I think we're on top of it right now. We've all been playing the game a lot, and we're looking at what different people are doing and how everybody is like testing different stuff and whatnot. And I think everybody on our team, for example, wanted like a different change and a different feel to the game, since it's kind of been a little bit of the same since last year. So I think this is a really big change, and I think all of us, I can speak for myself personally, like I'm really enjoying it. Like it feels fresh and new, and grinding feels really, really good, and all the guys are really happy with all the changes, and we're definitely on top of it. I'm pretty sure, for sure.
All right, that's good to hear. Well, your first opponents are going to be Sanguine, the first seed, I suppose, just in the regular first phase, but they did stumble a little bit at playoffs. Did you all see anything there maybe you could work with, or are things going to be too different now with phase 2, so you're just going to have to see how they play?
Things are a lot different, actually. I think there's quite a bit of changes that differentiate like how players can adapt and everything like that. I think we were pretty close in our sets versus them, so we're gonna keep what we did versus them and like our specifics that we did, and we're just gonna like capitalize on those and like what are our mistakes in those games and everything like that, and then go on from there and just see if we can win off those and not do our mistakes that we have before we made us lose our games.
Well, phase 2 just in general is longer, right? I think it's 14 weeks. You play everybody 3 times instead of 2 like in phase 1. I know that you said you're already making sure everyone's mental is on point. Do you think you all are ready for the endurance part of this, this long grind of this phase?
I'm so excited for the long phase. I really wish both phases were super long. I mean, I love competitive for sure, and it's definitely just like the key point of SMITE for me is like the competitiveness and everything like that. And I really like that we're constantly grinding all the time, especially going right into Worlds and everything. Like it's just like super hype for this whole entire split, and I'm really, really excited for that for sure.
Well, I know people are excited to see you all play. You get a lot of love in the fan votes, I think, too, in games, so a lot to live up to maybe in that regard. But always great to get a chance to talk with you, Vin. Good luck in your first match, man. Thanks for talking to me.
Thank you very much. Have a good one.
Hey, Vin talking about just loving the competition here in phase number 2. You love to hear that. I mean, if you were telling me you kind of missed the competitive itch a little while ago, too, so clearly something that just runs through these high-level players. You expect Renegades to be able to step up here against Sanguine, or I know you said earlier the 2-0. How are you expecting it to look?
Look, you won't catch me betting against Sanguine. I did it once in phase 1, and I got burned for it. I'm never going to do it again. But I think it's interesting to point out the parallels between these two teams. Both of these squads are constantly grinding SMITE. Renegades a little bit more so in the rank scene. You'll never see awesome Jake 408 and Barracuda not queued up together. You'll never see Ven and Lazara not queued up together. Solar Troll kind of gets the short end of the stick just because there's no 6-man on that squad that's going to be able to queue up with them. But even then, these guys are constantly playing the game. And Sanguine, just last night, 3 a.m., I'm trying to enjoy some SMITE casuals, and they put me in the dirt. What's going on with that, man? Don't they know they have SPL the next day? All these guys are constantly grinding.
Well, hopefully we'll get to see the fruits of their labors here. Let's move into picks and bans for game number 1 between Sanguine and Renegades. I think we are leaning a bit towards Sanguine. They've earned that respect with that first phase, but I don't know if it's going to come easy. This might be a grindy couple of games if they are able to find those 2 wins, because I know Renegades are coming in confident and ready to play, and they're going to play a bit of a unique style here as well, especially awesome Jake. I mean, he was playing things like tier and other off-the-wall picks before they were even good, so maybe with things like Sledge, you can get even more value out.
Oh, man, I'm remiss to see what awesome Jake 408 is going to do with these new item changes, man. This guy is an absolute wild card, and that's a strength for the Renegades. You can't lock down someone when you don't know what they're going to do. He can bring out the tier, he can go to the traditional Hercules pick, but you know whatever he's going to do, he's looking for pressure, and he's looking to win out in the duo lane itself, whereas Sanguine, I think, is going to play a much more subdued playstyle and kind of wait it out as long as they can.
And remember, Netroid was playing Freya, which he was bad, especially now that she's the best god in the game. There's no way you can let Freya through for Sanguine. I'm thinking at the very least, Netroid will snap, lock it in, and then he'll VEL spam you all game long as he chases you down with haste and rank. So I would be surprised if Freya were to make it through here at this point. It's one of his comfort picks. But even if he doesn't get Freya, we just saw Jingwei being piloted by Vote do very well, and we know that's another one of his comfort picks.
Fitch, are you seeing the bans right now? Because I'm noticing a distinct lack of A, Cthulhu, and B, every single magical hunter is still available. And they decided to ban out Olderun instead. Renegades, I mean, Fitch, you needed to be in the comms for these guys. If Sanguine doesn't take Freya here, I'll be floored.
Yeah, that's brave. That's all I can say to that one. Some confidence from the Renegades boys, because I would not want to give Netuate Freya right now. But here's the thing. You heard Renegades talking. They've been practicing for Sanguine. There's no way they're letting this pick slip through by accident or some kind of mistake. So they must have some kind of plan to deal with it. But everyone has a plan until Freya gets Ring Akahate. Couldn't say it.
Yeah. Yeah, 6 minutes into the game, she's full build. I mean, that's the running meme on the Reddit, on SMITE Twitter, whatever you want to say. And you know what? I can't argue with them. That stat stick is just phenomenal. No one's going to be able to trade into this god the second she gets that second amount online. Her survivability is insane. Cerberus, I mean, I like the pick in that he's going to have a long-range stun. You don't want to stand too close to that Freya. But even then, this is largely a mobile god once that leap is down. And with haste and ring, you're just going to get chased down.
Yeah, I got to imagine the passive is meant to be a part of this, right? I mean, he does steal some of that healing from the other team. I just don't know if it's going to be enough, right? Because there's so much sustain that's inlaid in these builds now when you get Lifesteal Boots Akate, Typhon's Fang as well. It gives you so much of that sustain. We'll see if maybe the Cerberus can be a significant answer. They're going to pair that, though, alongside this Nemesis, who we know has been a really popular pick. But Myth, they locked in Freya Persephone. Do we just go to game 2? I don't know, man.
I mean... Sanguine said it during the interview, Yarkor in particular, we're going to play the good stuff. We want to play the strong ones. And, I mean, my man ain't lied, bro. Freya and Persephone locked in.
That's
Renegades,
good.
if you have a strategy, I would love to see it. Because I don't know how to beat those gods. So if you could teach me right here, that would be phenomenal. Nemesis has an okay matchup into Persephone. Once that leaps down, the slows should be enough to make sure that Nem can stick to him. With additional frontline in this Cerberus, there's a lot of lockdown potential for Renegades. It's just... this damage and range that Sanguine have, the survivability that Freya brings, the just lockdown that Persephone has herself, the peel from Horus, Sanguine's running a pretty nasty comp.
It's scary what they've got right now, but the same way I gave Netroid credit for being a Freya stand, even when she wasn't nearly this good, you got to give Barracuda that same credit with Soul. He loves to pilot this pick if he gets that opportunity. I expect this to end up with him, and we all know how strong Soul is right now, too. I don't think she can quite match Freya's boxing potential, but Soul has the edge when it comes to tower damage and objectives as well.
I would agree with that 100%. Also, Soul is a little bit more survivable into Freya. You use Dissipate, you're able to run away pretty easily. It's not going to be able to chase you down with the ultimate, at least for a couple of seconds. Pair that with an Aegis, you're probably going to get out of just about every situation scot-free, which might be the best case scenario when you're laning against Freya. Just have a really good time running away.
Looks like Sanguine might not be complete believers, though, banning away the Neath, but maybe they're trying to ban the Neath middle lane because they also ban the Morgan. Fafnir comes in next, so maybe they're right. A double Hunter composition with the magical ADC and a physical Hunter could certainly be in the cards for Renegades now that they've locked in this Fafnir Guardian pick.
I mean, just Fafnir with Nemesis and Soul is going to be insane objective burn potential. Just all that auto attack is going to come through. But Sanguine get Cthulhu through second phase of bans. Yarkor grinning ear to ear, I'm sure of it. They got everything they wanted. And if that's a Bakasura lock, this is nasty. This is literally every top pick, top ban in ranked is what Sanguine locked in. They ain't lied when they said their strategy. They're not hiding anything. They're going to play exactly what you think they will, and they dare you to beat it.
And you know what? A lot of the times they come out on top with those dares, don't they, Mifflin? They don't do anything, I think, that is particularly tricky or trying to catch you off guard. They're just going to play the things they think are the best better than you, and that's absolutely what they've drafted here. I'm sure chat's panicking right now because this is all their worst nightmares in terms of a ranked game draft right now. To round things out, though, Renegade's going to select the Cupid, interestingly enough. Do you think this is Cupid mid for Venenu, or is the Soul going to Ven?
I'm hoping it's Cupid ADC. With recent buffs to Cupid, his wave clear has gotten a lot better. Heart Bomb now does additional damage to minions, so if it does go into the mid lane, he won't struggle nearly as much as he would have, but I'm worried about it. Cupid is a very easily mitigatable god. By heavenly agility, Fields of Love isn't going to hit you. I mean, Valkyrie's Discretion, Fields of Love isn't going to hit you. It's so hard to get value off of that ultimate, but it does bring a certain degree of sustain. The damage output is nice, and he's got a dash to help out his team, which will give his teammates additional attack speed along with the Fafnir when they're on objectives. Maybe Renegades are just looking to burn Fire Giants and Gold Furies.
Got to make sure we give Renegades credit, though. They didn't let these top picks through without consideration. Let's see if it works, though, in game number 1.
Yeah, not without consideration, John Finch, but they did let him through nonetheless. It is Dulcin and Gormizer on the call with Doug, of course, observing for us as the Phase 1 #1 seed kick off their Phase 2 campaign up against the Renegades. Gormizer, I want to hear what you think, but you guys at home, I want to hear what your thoughts are on this matchup. Make sure to vote in chat now, and we'll see those votes up on screen in a few minutes. But Gormizer, I get the feeling that it's going to be maybe lopsided in one particular direction.
I genuinely don't know where to start with this draft. From Sanguine, from Renegades, there's just so many things to try and bite into. You've got this buffet ahead of you. Everything seems delicious. You're starving, and I don't know where to start with it because the thing that maybe excites me the most is Renegades this game. Because obviously, there's no way you let those 5 gods through onto one team. You get Cthulhu, Bakasura, you get Persephone, you get the Horus and the Freya, and you are drafting things like the Cupid, the Nemesis, you get the Fafnir back. There's something they have to have this game that is going to stand out.
Right.
So I'm excited to see what they're going to prepare for it. But you have to look at what Sanguine are bringing, and specifically I'm going to hone in on Netrioid because I think this is a lane that they're going to be able to find so much success with. In Week 3 of Phase 1, they ran this Freya against Renegades and were able to win with it. Now she's just better, purely just better than what she was then, so it's going to look good for him in the dual lane.
Yeah, Ring of Hecate exists now where it didn't in Week 3, and Sanguine, as you mentioned, were able to get the win. Now a different look from the Cthulhu core. You mentioned one of the strong picks that Sanguine were able to lock in here. We have only been able to really gather data on Cthulhu out of the support role. A lot of that, you want Cthulhu to get involved earlier in a lot of these fights, so it will be a different look. Now, having to wait and see when Cthulhu can rotate into some of these fights. 77-23, not surprising there on the fan vote. But do you think that's a different enough look that maybe lessens his impact on the game, having Cthulhu over in the solo lane?
This has been the discussion we've been having the last couple of days, because when we were coming into this phase, a lot of the discussion between us and the casters has really been on Cthulhu over there in solo lane, because everything about his kit just screams solo laner, much like, well, the Cerberus here, as well as, Guardians like Jormungandr. But the fact is that when he's over in the duo lane, he can impact the fights a lot faster. He can be in there immediately at level 5 as opposed to waiting a little bit beyond that, which is typically when you start to see, like Yarkor or Solar or Troll rotate in this game. It'll be level 10, level 12 before they're really in it. So I'm wondering if Renegades are maybe going to try to take advantage of that lack of Cthulhu presence early on in some of these team fights, maybe press with this Soul, press with this Fafnir, try to gain control, since the rest of Sanguine isn't going to come online until level 20.
Oh, here's Panatom over to the long lane. Barracuda has to escape from this one. Will disapparate his way away, but Panatom early over to the long lane. Barracuda, Awesome Jake, both able to stay alive. You talked about maybe trying to pressure a little bit earlier here if you're Barracuda and you're Jake on this Soul. Opting for the tiny trinket, so you're going to get a little bit more magical power, a little bit of extra lifesteal online if you're Barracuda right off the bat. But Gore, that also delays how long it's going to take you to get to that Ring of Hecate. Netrioid, obviously, the Tier 1 ring, so he's going to have Hecate online a little bit sooner.
I think it is going to be the trade that Barra, in a moment like this, where he's half health, a little below, he's going to be able to potentially sustain in lane. Like you said, with Disapparate, as long as you have mana, you're able to get out of a lot of these scot-free. Freya has that built-in lifesteal, so she doesn't have to worry about it. I wouldn't be surprised if Barra maybe grabs the boots, then still goes Ring of Hecate, then doubles back for something like a Bancross Talon. Otherwise, maybe he's going for, maybe an early Typhon's Fang, something like that could potentially benefit him in the same way that the build has been the last couple of days. But it definitely is curious to spend that money up front elsewhere, considering the sustain that you're trying to box against is this Freya. I think really you need something online early to make sure that you can shut down Netrioid as fast as possible.
Well, the lane has been pushing against Netrioid just for a little bit. Finds its way right back towards the middle of the map here. It's going to be fun to follow along with Panatom, I think, as well throughout this game. We've seen a variety of assassins, I suppose is the right way to word it, out of the jungle. Nemesis has been a very popular pick. We wondered where the likes of Ratatosker, Kali, Bakasura would end up landing. There's been a distinct lack of Bakasura, I might mention, Gore, but Panatom obviously feeling comfortable with it. Golden Blade, the obvious first item there out of the jungle for Panatom, looking to make an impact early here for Sanguine.
Yeah, the biggest thing with a lot of these junglers has been specifically the use of Serrated Edge. It kind of, I I don't think it holds a real light to Ring of Hecate in terms of everything it gives you, but it's still a really solid item, right? You get some power, some lifesteal, some pin off of it, as well as movement speed. But it's that cooldown that you're working with, or it's passive that you're working with. When your non-ultimate abilities are on cooldown, you get some extra power. Bakasura doesn't utilize that quite as well as some of those other assassins. I mean, trying to get your Eat minion on cooldown and jump into a fight isn't always going to work together. So I'm curious to see if he wants to go into that, or if maybe he's going to shy away from a serrated edge, where we could see that even picked up on something like the Nemesis. We saw that yesterday, even though it doesn't necessarily synergize as well with her either.
There's a little pressure over onto the Sanguine purple buff here, not to be surprised when it's Jake piloting the Fafnir, and he does end up picking up the purple buff, so getting Netrioid behind is certainly helpful, but you need a little bit more. Remember the first set we saw today? Freya ganked early, Cubo Fred picks up the kill, you kill off Vote once, and it just wasn't enough. You know, you have to put this Freya a little bit further behind. You do have a soul to try to kind of keep pace with that, but I think you're looking at this game 5.5 minutes in. You know, there was an early attempt at a gank from Panatom, but you look at the scaling of a Bakasura and a Freya. I mean, you can't scoff at the late game from the Renegades either. But Sanguine, given their late game potential and their late game team fighting as a team, they got to be happy with the way the first 6 minutes have gone.
Yeah, honestly, if you're Sanguine, this is pretty much the best you could maybe ask for. If you get too aggressive into a composition like what Renegades has picked up early on, they're going to thrash you. That's pretty much where all of their strengths are. Even into the mid-game here that we're approaching, it's going to be dangerous to get as aggressive as you want. I specifically look at Rongyu. He likes to get in there. That stun is really valuable. The protection shred that Horus brings is very valuable. But Warriors, especially right now, especially when the likes of like Soul and Cupid are on the list there for Renegades, you're not going to feel anywhere near as tanky. You want to take it patiently and get those items online.
And you can see what the Renegades want to do here. Deep ward coverage on the left-hand side of the jungle. It's a gank from Lasbra, and it's first blood down for Barracuda. The writing seemed to be on the wall there for a little while. Pressure constantly crashing against the long lane of Sanguine. And Lasbra is going to swing first in this pivotal set.
And again, it comes down to the fact that right now you need that tankiness. You're a warrior. Already you're going to be a little bit off compared to the Guardian. You saw Jake has perfect timing with his ult, which just makes him immune for a little bit. You don't have to worry about the damage in return. And unfortunately, Netrioid still needs that next item online. He could more than likely box awesome Jake, no problem, which you see him doing right now.
Whoa!
But it's that turnaround potential that I think Freya just doesn't have yet.
Oh, Rongyu is going to the skies into the backline, and it's the support who ends up finishing off the kill. Panatom with an assist. Netrioid gets one as well. Jake has to burn the shell. Who needs Hecate on Freya when you got the lifesteal boots, I suppose, and Jake goes down.
And I think perfectly played, right? I was ready to write that off because I was like, yeah, Netrioid, okay, yeah, big scare, you got the shell. He's out of there. Nothing's going to happen. The minute Rongyu's able to use that ult, part of the reason we saw Horus so much in Phase 1, you know, it's going to make these rotations. It's something that Sanguine has played against already tons of times this year. And it just makes me think back to what Yarkor said in the interview. We're just going to play what's best in the game, and we're going to do it well. And honestly, that's all they did in Phase 1. And I think even if you ban something like the Horus, there's a couple of steps away. That's the problem, is there's so many strong gods these guys can bring into it.
That's right.
You have to be careful with it, but now you're just giving them comfort picks.
Yeah, it's got to be somewhat frustrating for the Renegades, given the way that First Blood went for them. You knock down the long lane just a little bit, but now Netrioid has gotten himself a small boost with the assist on his side. So these next few minutes are going to be pivotal, but it's not for nothing. Barracuda has himself a 2-level lead here. He was the one who snagged the kill over Rongyu. But, you know, it's a difficult question maybe to answer, Gore. But is it enough still, I think, comes to mind. You look at a 2-level lead for Barra and now a 1-level lead for Jake, but somehow it doesn't feel like Freya's out of it just yet, 8:45 into the game.
No, because it really does come down to the same thing I typically say about Hunters, and I think Cupid's going to be this way as well. You could make him 0-6, 3 levels, 4 levels, 5 levels behind. At a certain point in this game, he's still going to hit level 20, and he's still going to get 6 items online. And at that point, he's still going to hit really hard. And I think that's equally applicable here for Soul and for the Freya. More so maybe Freya, just because she's 1 tier away from getting that Ring of Hecate and realistically hitting that curve. Normally you'd add maybe 10 more minutes, let her get 2 more items online.
Now you don't have to worry about that. Once you get the Ring of Hecate, then you can start looking into a Typhon's Fang like we see Barra has picked up, or you can even go elsewhere if you really want to with your build. Either way, your power is already there, and your box ability, the word I'm going to make up for her now, is going to all of a sudden appear. And I think even with a 1-level lead, Barra is going to be in trouble.
Yeah, it's something to take note of. We wondered where the Ring of Hecate would fall into that build. We had seen the Tiny Trinket immediately into Hecate after Boots, so Barracuda, you bring it up, Gore, finishing off the Typhon's Fang. So we'll have to see how the power curve maybe starts to change. Of course, the 2-level lead is certainly going to pay off well here for them. Mirrored ward coverage, really, for both teams. Sanguine has some wards deep in the left side of the Renegades jungle. Renegades mirroring that over on the Sanguine side. Not to be surprised, we've seen some purple buff invades that have gone the Renegades' way a couple of times. Maybe looking for a little bit here. Jake just hovering over the wall, but Wrong Yu is going to be spotted out, so maybe not a big fight to spring from this one. And with all of this long lane talk, Goremizer, we haven't gotten really a chance to talk about the mid lane, and that's Shinto playing this Persephone, and we'll have to return to that after this Gold Fury. Renegades take it down to half HP. Wrong Yu stunned down. Nemesis ult down onto the Horus. Won't result in anything here, and looks like Renegades maybe start to shying away from the Fury.
This is where I think Sanguine are going to end up suffering throughout the entirety of the game. Lasbra, when he drops that ult, he has 2 big targets.
Ooh.
It can be Wrong Yu, which is getting a lot of damage now, or it could be Yarkor. Either way, it's going to force the duo lane to make some decisions.
Oh, no. 2-level lead be damned, I suppose. Netrioid is going to sprout some wings and pour down the damage onto the enemy soul and picks up a kill onto this Freya, and many would say that that's all she needed, and it's all downhill here for the Renegades. That's got to be aggravating if you're the Renegades or a Renegades fan. I mean, they start up that Fury, they think they've got it, it looks like you've got the damage to finish off Wrong Yu or Netrioid, and instead Netrioid gets himself a little bit too much in the way and picks himself up a kill.
It really does bring back the questioning, specifically around the Typhon's Fang. It's going to help augment the lifesteal Barra has from the boots, but early on it's not necessarily the most prominent item. Its passive really does reflect best on already having other items in your build picked up. So the fact that he was able to press it early on, I think is kind of saving face. You get that early lifesteal, but that's the trade you make. Now your mid game's a little awkward because it's going to take you a little bit longer to get a Ring of Hecate coming through. But you theoretically, if you don't get bursted down, you're going to be able to live. Unfortunately, Netrioid bursts you down.
Well, here we go. Wrong Yu just sort of walks at you, locks you down, and Netrioid's going to finish off the damage there. Barracuda and Jake both down to half HP. Barracuda will be fine with that. You can see already sustaining himself back to full. But you can't say the same for Jake, especially not with Panatom lurking around the corners here. Could be a tier 1 tower dive awaiting in the wings. Jake finds the stun. Wrong Yu looking for the dash forward, but that seems to be the end of it. If Wrong Yu had connected there, I think Panatom maybe leaps right on in. Lasbra lurking off to the side as well.
I think it's going to be a very weird analogy, but kind of like when you start pulling on a string that's at rest, right? The duo lane is going to start pulling ahead now of Renegades. Soon after, we're going to see the mid lane Persephone, and then Yarkor is going to start making rotations, and all of a sudden everybody on Sanguine should take the lead.
Well, Jake disarms Netrioid, and that's maybe the best you could hope for, but it's beads from the Freya and the ultimate to try to move out of the fight. Not much damage. Panatom has dropped down the ultimate, but Shinto, he's rotated over as well. Now the Persephone has found a kill to the skies. Wrong Yu brings 3 into the backline, but Fields of Love is there waiting, and Venenu better off for it as Panatom goes down. 1-for-1 trade continues here. Wrong Yu nearly finishes off Lasbra, and maybe the best you could hope for if you're the Renegades, but it's not all over just yet. Venenu hanging around, and now we finish with a 1-for-1 trade.
Either a hastened ring or maybe half a mana bar more, and I think Netrioid continues to go in for the fight right there. And honestly, they still don't seem ready to let this at rest completely for Sanguine. But it is that trade of jungler for support, maybe a little more beneficial overall for the Renegades. Losing Jake, not going to be anywhere near as much as losing Panatom on the other side, because that's just unfortunate for Sanguine. He's part of the big playmaker right now. I think it's also worth noting, you know, Fields of Love has a huge impact there because there's no sprint online, no heavenly wings available here for Sanguine to maybe nullify the slow effect that's going to come out from that. So if you see Wrong Yu pick that up as he starts to approach level 12, that could be the play, but he's also gone for Blink. There's no shells online for Sanguine, which might end up hurting them a little bit later.
On Gore, two big players in that previous fight were Venenu and Shinto, and again, actually, it was a few minutes ago, rather, I sort of mentioned that we haven't really had a chance to talk about this mid lane. Somehow, a Persephone makes it through, and the answer from the Renegades is kind of the double hunter, one magical, one physical composition, with Cupid. Relative impact up to this point, you argue even with both 1 kill, no assists.
Yeah, I think this is where we're going to see things start to change a little bit. I'm actually curious that Venenu went for Fail Not this early in the build as well on Cupid. I mean, crit chance is there, pin is there. If you want to melt through Yarkor and Rongyu, which I think is going to be part of his goal, it's going to be solid. And you cannot underestimate Heart Bomb and Fields of Love and what they can bring to a team fight, but I think he is going to be the one that all eyes are on, right? We know Persephone is great, and we know what she can do late game. Maybe not always going to be, let's say 7-0 or 7-2, carrying the team on her back, but her presence is always going to be felt. Netrioid's going to be the one that you have to kind of balance that with. Soul's very good at split pushing, but maybe not good in the 1v1. I think Venenu could potentially step up to be the Netrioid killer if he wants to.
Yeah, Venenu did find a great Fields of Love in that previous fight, and well, you didn't kill Netrioid. It maybe slowed things down and had an even fight for the Renegades. Probably call it positive for them. 15:45 into this one. 3,000 gold lead, 2.5 maybe for the Renegades. Actually out in the lead of this one. Surprising maybe with the way the tug and pull has gone. But maybe that's what you expect, Gore, up to this point. I mean, we saw what happened in the long lane. Sanguine put behind a little bit early. That gold gap hasn't quite been closed up yet from Sanguine. Maybe need to fight a couple more times to get there.
Now, I think they're going to have to keep a particular focus on the Furies that have been coming around, because we saw Renegades already is threatening at jumping in towards that, and they're already, again, grouping up over there, and with essentially 2 hunters, let's call Soul a hunter here, it's going to work. With 2 carries on their side, they're going to be able to melt this.
Yeah, that's the biggest gold differential there on the net worth chart. It's Barracuda far and away ahead. Now Yarkor has popped the ultimate. SOT has to do so defensively, but Panatom has locked him in, and now it's the Bakasura who swung for a kill. Netrioid takes to the skies. It's the tier 1 tower that Barracuda will gladly walk under, and now the Renegades have pulled back 1 kill of their own and the Fury just a few moments ago. Fighting continues now in the mid lane as Rongyu has rotated over to try to help out Shinto, and the Horus wants to keep going. That's the stun down onto the Cupid. Fields of Love is going to force Sanguine back just a little bit. Aegis, not enough to save Shinto's life this time. Lasbra here as well, and Venenu will benefit to the tune of a double kill. Renegades thanking him for it. A Fury and 3 kills.
Showcasing several things throughout all of that. One, Freya is not going to be able to fight 3v1, even though she's good. She's just not that good when it comes down to it. Her damage is still very high single target. So I think good call on Renegades to collapse in on Netrioid when they know he's vulnerable. And then switching over, Shinto and Rongyu just getting too aggressive there. I mean, diving into a tier 1 this early on, if you hit tab, you already know there's crit online for Venenu. You don't necessarily want to be jumping into that. And yeah, it's a little early, but I think it pays off even more there. You kill off Persephone, you don't have to worry too much about Shinto, and then all of a sudden Rongyu is just in the wrong place, wrong time. Awesome Jake and the rotations from Renegades are back on point.
Wrong place, wrong time, wrong you in that previous fight. 18 minutes in now, and the gold lead has ballooned another 2,000. There was a small skirmish that saw SOT finally go down. Really, for the first time this game, the Soul Laners saw some action on their side of the map, thanks to a rotation from Panatom deep in behind the fighting there. So now that's maybe the next big pivotal point of this game, Gore, is when this Cerberus and this Cthulhu are going to start to rotate into some of these fights. They have the exact same builds here up to this point. So we're going to get to see kind of the relative impact that both have, all else being equal here in this game.
Yeah, I think, honestly, Cthulhu is going to bring a lot. We've seen that ultimate countless times. I think yesterday, being able to stall out games, earlier today, being able to help slow down games. It's part of the reason why, again, I think that he's going towards that duo lane is just how much he can impact a team fight. But because it's a little bit more protection-oriented, health-oriented here, Yarkor is just going to be a tanky target. I don't think that Soul specifically, but also the Cupid, the Nemesis, if she decides to throw that Divine Judgment onto him, they're not going to have that much issue burning through Yarkor.
No.
So he has to still be careful with his positioning, and I think that's the problem in the future for Sanguine here. They have a lot of strengths on this team that enable them and this draft to just excel. But some of it relies on a little bit of 1v1s, being able to find the right pick, maybe keeping 2v2s like this in the duo lane. But the team fight starts to shift a little bit towards Renegades. I think this Nemesis pick really does make it a little bit more of an equal playing field.
Yeah, Lasbra impacting 100% of the kills here so far on this Nemesis. Malice is an interesting conversation piece, and we'll be able to have that conversation after this small skirmish as Lasbra has to double dash his way away. Yarkor is going to look for the root, won't find it as SOT actually do some decent damage. SOT was kind of the early adopter, I think, of this Cerberus pick. You know, the one guy that is not surprising to see Cerberus on is probably SOT. And you see how much damage he was able to do to Yarkor there. Just a little bit of extra magical power in his back pocket.
I think this is where, again, if Renegades can continue playing this, it's going to change. And you had mentioned that Malice. I love that it's hovered now because you can look at it. It's specifically the fact that Lasper is going to get benefits for sticking on you and hitting you down. Every time he gets a crit, here's some cooldowns back. If he has to use his shield, he'll be able to get that back. Survivability exists, and it just makes it a tough time for a Squishy.
This could be the first big pivot point in the game here. It's Fire Giant being looked at by the Renegades. All important actives available for the carry. Shinto, Venenu, Barracuda, Netrioid all have their defensive actives here. It's Shell for Venenu, might have to return to that topic here. Renegades don't look to move in any further to the FG. They're just going to plug down some damage and move their way away. So now we do have a chance to talk about Venenu and why maybe this upgraded Shell is so important to him.
So, Aegis is going to save you from big burst abilities, right? Hey, I'm getting Kraken, Aegis. Hey, I'm going to have, just say a Nox combo, Aegis, all right? The Shell, having the block stats, it has to be upgraded here for it to make a difference, because who's he worried about?
Yep.
Well, not Persephone. Who cares about her right now? It is the Bakasura and the Freya. Either one of those, if they get those 2 extra hits on you, you're dead before you can impact the fight. Having 2 upgraded Shells here means that multiple members of this team fight are going to be able to kind of shrug off Panatom and Netrioid and potentially stay not only alive, but in the fight, engaged with Sanguine here, which is going to turn around things like potentially this Oni Fury much more in Renegade's favor.
Yeah, Renegade's feeling a little bit more comfortable with the smaller objective here. Not enough, though, to fully complete it out. Yarkor has taken most of his HP just moving forward. 1 shell popped, Fields of Love dropped down. That is both actives from Jake, resulting in not much. Does buy enough of a zone, though, for the Oni Fury to eventually go down.
And I think what's really happening is that Renegades have given away what I think is one of the strongest drafts, like still intrinsically, purely based on gods alone. Sanguine have a stronger draft, but itemization and the way that they're playing it just makes it so much more difficult for Sanguine to shine bright with these gods and showcase what they can do. Yeah, you've got all this lifesteal and damage as Freya, but Netrioid isn't in a position to really showcase what it can do. If he does hit Barracuda, Barra disapparates out of there, stays alive, and then heals up thanks to the Typhon's Fang and Ring of Hecate he has now. Yarkor, you get aggressive and Lasbra ults you, and now all of a sudden you're 1/3 HP and you can't stay in the fight anymore. I think the way Renegades are focusing this on objectives and around their cooldowns, it's just going to be up to Sanguine now to force a fight outside of there. Make them use their ults, disengage, and then jump right back in on them to make sure that they aren't able to utilize those for a second time.
A couple of things that have kind of come to mind, Gore, through the first 23 minutes of the game. First off, love seeing this from the Renegades. Remember, a lot of... I don't want to say what they lacked necessarily in Phase 1, but there were some objective decision-making questions that people had about them. And they're very confident in the calls they've made up to this point. Let's start the FG. Maybe don't feel it quite as much. Immediately pull over to the Fury, take that one down. Now they've done that twice so far here in this game. So I think it's a great look so far, 23 minutes in for the Renegades. On the flip side, though, it feels like maybe this is Sanguine saying, we're so confident in our late game, because it's been a lot of disengaging from Sanguine over the last few minutes. A lot of backing off of these objectives, not fully going in. I mean, Jake pops both the Frenzy and the Shell, and that's really all Sanguine need to back themselves off. So there's obviously some late-game confidence if you're not trying to force the issue just yet. Might have a chance to here in the mid lane. Looks like they're going to try to defend this Tier 1 tower. Maybe not fully with their lives here, just waiting for one more of those waves to crash on it.
Realistically, what we're looking at right now, much to your point there, is that it's kind of the question of who's going to play this meta better, right? I mean, you play Phase 1, it's a different, distinct flavor of Smite than what you're getting right now. So maybe showing some strength, a little bit of old flavor in there for Sanguine, but we saw how that worked for the Knights, and it didn't necessarily shine out.
Uh-oh, Jake banished and takes a good bit of damage, but now Panatom has caught the Lasbra ultimate on the job. Venenu back beneath this tier 1 tower. Yeah, Yarkor, no problem walking down there, but he needs a little extra damage. Renegades have turned tail back to try to help their mid laner. Venenu gets the kill nonetheless. 1-for-1 trade there. Now Jake being looked at by Panatom, who has to leap away from this engagement. Lasbra dashes right back through. Netrioid up high is going to pepper down a good bit of damage here. Blinks exchanged across the map as Sanguine disengaged. Shinto has turned around enough damage to get the kill on Jake, and Netrioid has done the same to SOT. It's Barracuda left alone. Maybe one final shot, but the banish is big, and the Aegis is there, and down goes Barra, and this game has been flipped. Sanguine, 4 kills.
Yarkor kind of sacrifices himself in that scenario, but it ends up working out well for him because now they use Wrong U, they can all go in on the Fire Giant, that extra bit of damage, and it really is just the focus, right? Everyone turns to burn down Yarkor, right? Everyone wants to go in on this Cthulhu. No one's looking at Shinto, no one's looking at Netrioid, and now, yeah, you maybe get, way more kills than you deserve. A double here for Lasbra. Maybe it causes more trouble for Sanguine than I thought.
Yeah, good looks there from Lasbra. It is the Fire Giant taken down, but now only on the 2 surviving members here of Sanguine. Netrioid has found the banish around the corner. No problems on that one. Important for Sanguine to win that trade. You cannot count out this Nemesis damage 25 minutes into the game. And where we stand, Gore, you look at gold graphs, you look at experience, it's Barracuda actually, surprisingly, the last non-support to reach level 20. But almost everyone else is starting to reach those full build states. I don't think we can understate, though, Gore, the fact Netrioid is important to have this FG buff on. So is Shinto as well. But Lasbra has kept Renegades in this game a little bit longer.
I think that double kill, I was ready to write it off. I think Sanguine were in the same position, right, where they're just like, yeah, go for Fire Giant. He's not looking at it, so you don't have anything to worry about there. But it really is the ability that Nemesis brings. That double dash, especially with proper auto-canceling, means you're going to stick to people incredibly well, and I think that's exactly what Lasbra was able to do. You don't get a double kill like that out of nowhere for no reason. I think it showcases why he was one of their biggest players in Phase 1. And, the other side of that, and I think the other person that's going to be pushing forward and has caught my eye here has been Awesome Jake. I mean, we've talked about in Phase 1 several times where he was kind of carrying Renegades in some games, where he was the reason they could win. And they were still getting used to playing with him. That was still his first competitive phase in the SBL. Here, starting it off, you can tell that teamwork already is layered and exists. So even though there were maybe a couple of stumbles here, they still have the gold lead. They still have a huge advantage in terms of pressure. Yep. I think it all comes down to this Fury in this fight.
It was just Shinto, Netrioid, not necessarily left unchecked, but you saw in that big mid lane fight, 3 members of the Renegades had to pull back to try to help Venenu. And that's 3 less people who are jumping on the back line, as you would hope, keeping Netrioid out of the fight. Just too difficult to really dance around this Freya. Barracuda opting out of the full ring build has gone Soul Reaver, and then one of Tahuti, Kronos, and Charon's. Maybe a little bit more ability base there in the Soul. We'll have to see if that comes out to play here. It's Primal Fury quickly taken down by Sanguine. No contest from the Renegades.
I think impressive the Renegades are. I mean, for a Primal Fury, maybe you don't have to contest it that hard, but just letting Sanguine essentially right now devour the left-hand lane. No one's in position to try and chase that. In fact, they look like they want to base race it. Tier 2 in mid, a Phoenix over here in right if Lasbra goes unchecked, and it's forcing Sanguine to fall back, just trying to burn that Fire Giant time.
Come on. Lasbra's just begging the minions to hurry up and forcing all 5 members of Sanguine back. You get a little tick of damage on the right side Phoenix. Most of the health of this mid-tier 2 tower is down. Gore, it's a 317 gold differential so far, and Renegades, yeah, it's against them, but they've made maybe the most map difference so far, despite being down 2 Fire Giants. Or 2 Fire Giant buffs.
Yeah, I think at this point, Renegades play this exactly the way they need to, right? Those Fire Giant buffs, they're disappearing in 40 seconds. You can try to rush down this Tier 2 here, but it's dangerous. It's only on Netrioid and Shinto, both of them easily collapsed on. They might get a Tier 2, but there's not much of a chance to really pressure that mid-Phoenix.
There you go. It's the plus 1,000 goal differential here. The fight will certainly determine which way that one goes. Yarkor has no chance to do anything. SOT, big ultimate over onto Sanguine, and Jake finishes off the kill. It's the Renegades on the tier 2 defense, but Netrioid has something to say about it. Venenu finishes off Rongyu. It's Shinto and Netrioid, same members as last time, both left alive. Vanish connects onto Laz.
Jeez.
Bro, one more auto would have done it. Look at the confidence from Sanguine, not backing away, but it's the Renegades coming out ahead, 3 for 1.
All right, so I was just wrong there. In my mind, there was no way two gods, even with a slight Fire Giant buff, was going to make a difference. I guess I kind of forgot what Freya does, which is the classic 2-3 shot if you really need it. And Netroid showcases that perfectly. As long as the cooldowns are in your favor, that Hasten Ring lets you stick to people like no other. And the fact that you chase off 4 members of Renegades, any other gods on Sanguine right there, and they are wiped, and potentially we see Renegades actually ending the game right now with a team wipe at that point. But now it's Sanguine who are able to be in position. They're respawning in time for this Fire Giant. Still has 20 seconds left before it respawns. They can ward up, leave base, and focus much more on the objectives like we're used to seeing them play.
That's right. It won't be a split objective push here with Fury lagging about 2 minutes behind the FG. Sanguine can do this quickly. I mean, very fast if nobody from the Renegades are in range. No wards on the Fire Giant just yet. Luckily, both teams still have to move their way away. Quick look at the relics. It really is the Renegades lagging a little bit behind Sanguine. Notably, Panatom's beads are down. Rongyu's going to have his shell back up. There are a couple for the Renegades that are, a minute and a half to a minute out, so you look at Sanguine maybe feeling a little bit more comfortable going into this next fight.
Just having those available, like you said, it's going to make it a little more different. I still am a little missed on, specifically Rongyu having Blink. I think closing that gap is going to be big if he can potentially find a proper target with his stun, but otherwise you're looking at him maybe not having much utilization in that area. They're still hanging around. Rongyu's ult still perfect in the event that they have to back off and maybe need to ult in and drop ship. 5-man team fight right in the middle of the Fire Giant pit. So I don't know if I qualify anything as out of the fight for Sanguine until they get just hard pressured back to the base. And we've already seen what happens when Renegades try to fight into them. Shinto and Netrioid just do not care what happens to their teammates because they can turn it around single-handedly. I mean, 4-1-4 right now is Netrioid, and I don't know if he's going to showcase any worry. It might be worthwhile for specifically Lasber over here to try and find the Freya.
Well, some of those actives have come back. Renegades have bought enough time. Barracuda, still no Aegis, but this is what we've seen around these objectives. Renegades starting them up. Rongyu ulted in by SOT, but it's going to dash his way away. Fire Giant down to half HP, and double stun on the backline actually catches Panatom thanks to Rongyu delivering it there. Renegades, Sanguine both take a little bit too much poke damage, and the Fire Giant still waits.
The Panatom, I think, being able to appropriately do this. Your tanks, you're going to have a little bit of healing coming down from the Horus. This actually kind of hurts Renegades, I think, more often than not, because they have that heal. They can sit here in the jungle as long as they want to and come back just as tanky as ever. And Shinto, Panatom, Netrioid, no issues for them healing back up. Honestly, for Shinto, sometimes it's even more worthwhile if you do die. Yeah, you don't want that cooldown to happen. You don't want to have to sit there and wait for the respawn, but knowing that you're just going to be able to continue free-firing abilities at that point with no consequences is going to be nice for him. Still hasn't necessarily been forced to make that decision often. No one's getting to this backline. You see Panatom getting hit occasionally. Rongyu gets pulled in by that Cerberus ult. You have Yarkor, who has Thorns. He recognizes that he's going to be a big target. But Renegades, even with the double dash for Lasbra, even with Fields of Love having a pretty decent range to maybe try and lock down that backline, no one can get to these two carries that Sanguine have, and I think they're showcasing why they are top bans right now. And depending on how the rest of this game goes, potentially why you need to ban at least one of the two of them.
Looks like there is only one very skinny route that Sanguine could sneak back into the Fire Giant to get onto it. Luckily, the Oni Fury for Sanguine, very quick to go down. You only need to commit a couple of members over to that, and that's Oni. That's going to be big for pushing out this left wave a little bit further. The right wave already pushing in up against the Renegades. Now right back to this Fire Giant. Renegades didn't have a couple of ultimates there after that first little skirmish. Sanguine didn't want to force the issue, realizing that the Oni Fury coming back up. The Pyromancer now goes down for the Renegades, but maybe not surprising though, Gore. It's been the Renegades that are fighting more on the Sanguine side of the Fire Giant pit. They'll even start up the FG once or twice, see what that response is. But it hasn't been Sanguine being the ones to do this. Finally, Sanguine with a bit of a different look. They're going to start up the FG here with SOT and Lasbra hanging in just off to the side. Half HP on the Fire Giant. Lasbra back behind, Panatom mirroring him. Maybe once more the FG is stalled out.
Renegades, they have the map pressure right now, and I think that's causing maybe a little bit of second guessing from Sanguine. If you don't win this fight, you absolutely lose the game if you're Sanguine because of how far these minions are pushed up. Midwave, the only one that really has any aggression right now.
It's a good banish from Netrioid. Connects over onto to Jake there. Shinto's provided some good poke damage as well. Overtakes top damage in the game by about 4,000. Has really skyrocketed in these last few fights Shinto has. Everyone was chasing Yarkor for the large part of this game, but suddenly this Persephone, maybe the biggest difference maker in some of these fights for Sanguine. See, you look at the difficulty on getting onto Netrioid, getting onto Shinto. Twofold now for the Renegades. The Fire Giant has been started up. Yarkor playing Divider. Panatom there as well. Frenzy popped by Awesome Jake, but it's just to melt down the big old Cthulhu. SOT has used his ultimate here. Can he get rid of Yarkor? SOT is sure trying. Sanguine get the Fire Giant down, but they don't have the health to show for it. Renegades looking to chase on into the skies used, and see you later, says Sanguine. Netrioid gets the fadeaway, and they get out alive.
And that's so worthwhile. Not only do you pick up the jungler, you keep Panatom alive even though he was so close to dead. And yeah, you lose Yarkor, but out of everyone on your team, he's maybe the most worthwhile. Now, looks like Sanguine are still attempting to turn this back around. They saved who they wanted. Now they have that enhanced Fire Giant, that sustain that's going to be able to come through. This Tier 2 tower might as well not even exist, I believe, to Netrioid. And I think that can also be said of Jake and SOT here.
God, Netrioid is just absolutely swinging. The only damage that caught onto him, I think, was just a little hangover from the previous fight there. It hasn't fully healed himself back up just yet. Right-hand wave still is going to have to push in here, but Rongyu is going to tank this tower up, no problem. Lasber's back in 10 seconds, though, Goremizer, so I question how deep Sanguine are willing to go, given the full 5v5 impending.
Well, Yarkor is going to be able to teleport back in. I think that makes the big difference, right? Yarkor, if he wants to, jump into the back line, again, be the big distraction factor. It worked for them around Fire Giant, where Netrioid was able to go pretty much untouched, unscathed, while Panatom and Yarkor just caused all sorts of trouble for the Renegades by jumping in onto Venenu, by causing trouble for Barracuda, and I wouldn't be surprised if they just run the exact same strat.
It's Panatom who moves forward. Both actives still available for Netrioid. It's Panatom caught back. Barracuda finishes off the jungler. That's a fadeaway from Shinto that gets over onto Venenu. Suddenly the Cupid has to leave this fight. As I mentioned, Netrioid, both Aegis, both beads, still around. If anyone finds their way into the back onto this Freya, hasn't happened just yet. Netrioid taken low. Barracuda finds a good bit of damage. But Netrioid, he's got more. Underneath the Phoenix goes the Freya as Lasbra takes a tumble yet again. Barracuda locked down by Rongyu, and Yarkor is going to be the one to finish off the kill. 3 members of the Renegades left defending, could be 2. The banish connects over onto Awesome Jake as Netrioid finishes off the support. SOT Venenu, last 2 left alive. Sanguine rolling their way in, 4 members strong, 3 with the Fire Giant buff. SOT is going to move forward. Venenu is going to try to find a stun, maybe turn this fight in their favor. SOT has found it. Venenu, he's gotten the kill over onto Yarkor, but is it enough? Netrioid says no. Titan's going to crumble, and Sanguine in 37 minutes look like they're going to take game number 1. A double kill from Netrioid seals the deal.
I think it comes down to the fact that Renegades, they play their comp well, they itemize well early on, they utilize their early pressure and their mid-game pressure to make sure that Sanguine have a more difficult time getting to that late-game stage we had talked about at the very beginning of the game. But at the end of the day, the timer kept ticking on. They couldn't turn any of that into a distinct advantage. And I think once that first Fire Giant goes down and you see Sanguine, even though, you know, only 2 of them walk away alive with it, they still have 2 members with that Fire Giant buff. I think that was the pivotal moment where, unfortunately for Renegades, they just weren't able to pick up the scraps afterward.
It's not for a lack of trying. And this is a proactive Renegades team that we saw here in this game, starting up those objectives, looking for these fights. Sanguine is just so good at backing themselves off just enough before immediately re-engaging. You thought they were running after that Fire Giant. They turn it around, win the fight. and end up winning the game right after it. The number 1 seed from Phase 1 strike first here in this big set to start off their Phase 2. And take a quick break, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be right back with game number 2 in this one.
You have yet to see the meaning of cruel.
Let the heavens rage!
Welcome back to the SPL, and welcome back to that Maxonomic reminder. You are going to want to pick up this tier as soon as you can. I know you might be noticing that I don't have the Maxonomic tier, but I have been told it is on the way, and I could not be more excited to be grabbing mine to get that free name embroidery with code SMITEMAX. There it is, the empty chair, Dulce in the background. That's exactly the one that you could pick up yourselves. If you go ahead and hop in there, make sure you use code SMITEMAX and grab yourself a new seat. Mifflin, though, you and I barely got to stay in our seats during that last match. Incredible one between Sanguine and Renegades. Before we say anything about how nasty Sanguine are, I want to give Renegades credit for taking that nasty Sanguine comp that late into the game. They should not have had a chance to win that one as far as I'm concerned, but they looked in control for most of it.
Look, Barracuda was up 3 levels at certain points. They were controlling the objectives. They were controlling the map. They were winning out on majority of the engagements. But that said, you have a Freya on the enemy team. You're on a timer. You're on a timer more so than I could say any other god has been in the game. You think Kali late game's going to decimate. You think you got to win the game before Hell comes online? No, sir. Freya is the be-all, end-all right now, and that's just the truth of it. We even saw Sanguine and multiple times had to trade out 3 of their members for a tier 2 tower, but then just Freya, essentially, I mean, sure, Shinto was there, was able to turn a 2 versus 4 engagement and force the entirety of Renegades back to base. That's all based off of draft.
It is, man, and I think, honestly, you could say Renegades played better this game. At least that's how I feel from where I was sitting. It's just because they gave up so many priority picks that it ended up being really bad for them. And take a look here at this last Fire Giant fight. It's going to look like Sanguine are on the back foot on this fight. So Troll gets a kill. It looks like they're running, but Netroid realized he gets this kill onto Lasbra, and they're able to turn the fight back around. Time after time, it looked like Sanguine were retreating, but they were just waiting for a chance to push. And Lasbra is going to look for Netroid again here, but there's just no opportunity. It's too much burst damage. He had to retreat, and it's too much damage from this Freya. They didn't have any way to get back there and kill her.
Yeah, she's had the fantastic comp around her. I mean, I think it was Aggro that said it backstage. This is the best draft I've ever seen in Smite. And that's the full quote. That's what he said to me. And I couldn't argue with them. I mean, they got 4 out of 5 of the best gods in role. Renegades played better. I'm not going to mince words here. They played the better game. They controlled it completely. And Sanguine just picked better, and that's really where they won the match. Renegades might have been able to close it out, but there's not much I can fault them for in that match outside of the picks and bans.
It was a tremendous uphill battle, and I want to give Lasbra some credit because I think in those highlights it's going to look like he got kind of used up by Netroid, but Lasbra knew that if he didn't find some way back there to Netroid, they could not win. I think it was just an unsolvable equation. No, man, I don't think you were getting back there and killing the Freya in that regard. I think he had the right mentality. Those windows did look tempting, like chances where maybe you could get to the Freya, but it's too much sustain, it's too much burst, not a chance they were going to be able to kill him.
I agree. My heart goes out to Ven as well. He played an incredibly unorthodox pick inside of Cupid mid. He got 3-man dived in the mid game, killed 2 of them, and survived. And he didn't have any help. It was just Ven and Cupid against the world, and it worked out. I mean, as far as mechanics go, the team play, Renegades was a step above, and this is not the same Renegades that we had in Phase 1. I was utterly impressed.
Yeah, I'm stealing that Cupid build. My man got to the full CDR cap, to the full pen cap as well. He was swinging with that Cupid build. It just was not quite enough for them to get that win done. But boy, did he make Cupid look fun to play. I might have to give that one a try myself after the performance that Vin had. But now, Myth, the question is it just as simple as maybe some adjustments here in the picks and bans? Because Renegades played lights out by all metrics.
Yeah, I think it really does just come down to that. If Renegades don't let Game 1 really affect them, their mental stays strong, they ban out Freya, they keep together the rest of it. I mean, not just Freya. They gave Persephone up. They gave up Horus, Bakasura, all these top picks. If they could take away even just 2 of them, I'm pretty sure Renegades can run with it.
And I've been singing about how good Cthulhu Solo is, but I don't know if maybe this was the best argument here for it there. I think there were some times where Yarkor went in on his own and got blown up too quickly, but all of that can be remedied here in game number 2. Let's get those picks and bans up on the screen. It will be Renegades in that first pick position. Remember, Sanguine had first pick last time, and they will lock in the Freya, the Persephone, and the Horus in those first 3 spots. I doubt Renegades will let that happen again.
We could certainly hope so. Bans so far, pretty standard. I imagine Renegades are only going to look to ban out maybe 2 Magical Hunters. If you ban out too many, you run the risk of not getting one yourself. If you ban out none of them, you run the risk of giving up the better one. With first pick, I'm sure Renegades might be looking towards Freya themselves, especially considering Netroid was down, to reiterate, down 3 levels for almost the majority of the early game, the majority of the mid game, but at no point do I think Barracuda felt comfortable in the 1v1 despite that huge disparity, and that's just the strength that Freya brings.
Well, what about the build from Barracuda? Because I believe we saw the Soul Reaver Rod up to Hootie to round it out towards the tail end. Not what we typically see in those mage ADC builds, but he was trying to leverage some of the ability damage from Soul as well. Do you like that route? Would you have made any adjustments there, or was that not really a big issue?
I think as far as Soul goes, his build was just fine. You want to get utility out of the rest of the abilities because Soul's auto attacks don't really bring the same oomph that Freya does, that Kronos does, that Oleron. Oleron's got crit. Freya is Freya. She's going to hit you for 900 no matter what. Every auto attack's a crit. And then Kronos can just self-boost his autos by 25%. Soul doesn't have that same level of oomph, and her oomph isn't as consistent. You have to keep that Soul meter built up. So itemizing towards the abilities, I think, makes perfect sense.
Hey, it looks like Renegades agree with you. Barracuda looking to top pick the Soul here for Renegades as they ban away the Freya this time, and I think that is a lesson learned. You don't want to allow Netroid to pilot that pick again. They're also going to ban away the Oleron and the Emoja. So I think in this spot, you can feel really good about your top pick Soul pick because Kronos probably not going to get picked up that much. I think that after some talk about it, probably the weakest of those mage ADCs right now. So I think Renegades feeling pretty good.
She's also a very safe pick, so you're not opening yourself up to really any counters. I mean, disapparate, I'm sorry, that's a hard word for me, is just one of the best escapes in the game. You're going to have slow immunity, you speed yourself up, eventually it turns into a moving Aegis. Afterwards, use normal Aegis. You have CC immunity in the ultimate. Self-healing, lifesteal through Ring of Hecate is going to be pretty nasty as well. I think Soul is a very strong jack-of-all-trades picks, but that leaves Persephone up for Sanguine, which is, again, probably the best mid laner.
And they'll pair that with the Nemesis, but look at this from Renegades. This is almost exactly what I wanted from them. A slight adjustment in the ban phase by taking the Freya away, but go right back to the Soul and the Cupid that by all metrics are actually working in game number 1. I already told you how impressed I was with that Cupid build that we saw from Venenu. Obviously, Barracuda was way ahead of Netroid on the Soul last game, and we have to think Netroid's probably going to go to the Jing Wei in a world where you can't play the Freya. I think Soul's got a pretty decent matchup there.
I think he does, but I'm not willing to say that Netroid's going to immediately go into Jingwei because they say they play the meta. That I think magical ADCs are the meta right now, definitively. I've seen enough of the SPL now in just 2 days to know that that's where the strength is. We might see the Kronos picked up here.
But it will be the Jingwei. Myth, I'm going to be with you. I don't take too much credit for that one. I think you're right to think the magical ADC might come out, but the Jingwei makes a ton of sense to me too in this spot. But what about this Hercules? Do you think that this is for Awesome Jake? We're going to see that Hercules support that Aurora and PDM have popularized?
I think it could go there, but with knowing Awesome Jake 408, he's always trying to throw a curveball. I've never seen him throw it straight and down the middle. So this Hercules could just be a fantastic flex pick. It could go towards solo. He finds his home there just fine. You could even see it go towards the jungle. I'm not willing to make a definitive statement here on it. The Jingwei pick, is good. It's actually got a pretty decent matchup. If Soul is caught out before she's able to use her third ability, gets knocked up by Jingwei, with the crit build as it is right now, Jingwei's going to have plenty of cooldown reduction. Her pen cap should be very easy to hit. Hunters are very strong still, even if they are outshined by magical hunters. I think this matchup might be all right. If you could kill Soul before she touches the ground, and I think Jingwei can do that, that's pretty nice.
I like this Horus band though from Renegades. Remember, Rongyu made that excellent Horus play. We were all in the green room freaking out, like this Horus ult's not going to get off in time when they were trying to escape with that Fire Giant buff. But Neshwave got the kill into Lasbra, and they were able to reposition. So you have to take that utility away from them by banning it. But look at this, Sanguine hovering over the Mulan. How strong do you think she is right now here, Myth?
I like Mulan a lot because it's a lot harder to sustain in Soul Lane now, and Mulan might be one of the most aggressive bullies you can send over there. And we just know that Yarkor loves that pick. He was playing it before anyone else thought she was remotely good, before the buffs that she got recently. And now she's a slightly stronger pick, some more mitigation. Her healing is going to be very nice to have inherently through the second ability. So even with Soul Eater now, with Soul Eater changes, she's going to get cooldown, pen, lifesteal off abilities before you even stack up the passive. This Mulan pick could be very strong.
I think you're right, Myth, and I think you're right to bring up Soul Eater and how strong that is right now. I think we might see Berserker Shield too. We've seen some type attack speed items showing up for Mulan to the past too, so that could also be an option. But this Arachne for Renegades, we were saying that Arachne was going to be a top pick all week leading up to this. We hadn't seen her yet, but now she's picked up for Lasbra. Do you think this is the moment to make Arachne work?
I mean, Arachne into this entire draft is strong. Persephone, you're going to get chased down. Nemesis, well, your shield, I have a stun for that, and as well, I'm going to be swinging 2.5 times a second. I'm going to drop about 2,000 damage before you can blink your eyes. Mulan's going to have a very hard time dealing with it. Cthulhu's going to have a very hard time dealing with it. This Arachne pick is incredibly strong, and Serrated Edge is on my mind.
It is. And remember, we all felt, I think, kind of as the casters, that Renegades played a stronger game, but they just kind of ran into some really strong picks from that Sanguine draft. I think they might have given themselves the tools to potentially take us to a third game. I don't want to get ahead of myself here. How are you feeling now that you get to see all 10 picks, Myth?
All 10 picks, and taking into account Renegades seem to be just on fire, I'm willing to bet on a game 3 here. I really am. The picks from Renegades are largely effectively the same, just how they want to play around their team comp.
Right.
So I think Sanguine's going to have to make a big adjustment on how they're playing. You can't really rely on that artillery strike inside of Freya. Jingwei still deals very good damage. It's just not the same level of it. Renegades very likely could take us to game 3.
I wonder if we'll see Mulan support here too, because I know from that interview Yarkor really likes Cthulhu right now. It might be hard for him to give it up, but I don't know. I don't feel that Mulan's support is all that strong.
Yeah, I agree. You know how I feel about Cthulhu support. I think it's his best role. I mean, the dominance in lane is there, the lockdown, the damage potential. If you decide to max Cthulhu's 3 just a troll and a casual, you're going to do 50% of someone's health bar at level 4. I mean, there's so much that Cthulhu brings in the early game. I love him getting involved.
Well, we'll get our chance to see where all these picks end up. Headed down to Dave and Gore for the cast.
Thank you very much, Finch and Mifflin, for Game 2 of Sanguine and Renegade. It's still Dolson and Goremizer, and it is Mulan support Gore. So, maybe Mulan out of her strongest role, maybe Cthulhu out of his strongest role. At any rate, we're going to have to see Rongyu and what he's able to do on this Mulan in the long lane.
You did just get a good game from Yarkor on this Cthulhu, so maybe there's something to be said about a comfort pick just going where it's going to be comfortable. And like Finch said, it's something he obviously loves, so it's not something they're going to give up easily. But my eyes are on this rotation early on. I don't know that Sanguine have the early game fight. They seem to think they do, so I like this call to fall back. And because my eyes are falling onto this Arachne. I've been talking her up a lot coming into this, and I think everybody has, because Serrated Edge just works so well with her. Golden Blade works so well with her that it fits perfectly. And Dave, it's not just the Serrated Edge that I think is going to make the big difference. I mean, 40 power when all of your abilities are on cooldown, which you know she's going to get every time she's chasing down anybody. Correct. She's going to throw her 3, pop the 1-2 for the stun, attack speed, heal combo. But her passive plays so well into it as well, because she gets 1.5% physical damage for every 5% of their missing health. She can kill tanks with this as well. I just think she is going to be very deadly, and Lasbra's hands, I expect it to cause some trouble for Sanguine.
And I expect Jake to cause some trouble for Sanguine as well. I mean, you look at this lane, fighting into a Hercules is never fun. Maybe the saving grace is that Barracuda's going to need a little bit of time to get online. Opted for the same start here. A little bit of healing, a little bit of power to start things off. Sprint actually popped by Rongyu, so a different look there. Netrioid a couple of auto attacks away, but able to stay alive. Jake somewhat low as well. But the early bullying Gore in this long lane going the way of the Renegades.
Very similar to what we saw in Game 1, except this time Netrioid's not Freya, so the idea of fighting back 3 levels down, it's just harder to believe in the Jingwei. That being said, it was one of the top-picked ADCs, period, in Phase 1. And also one of Netrioid's top picks.
Yeah, he's
period.
okay.
So it is absolutely something you still have to be threatened by. I think until we see Barra cultivate a lead that large, we can't really count it out. And it does kind of add a little curiosity over here, right? You're going to lose some pressure, I think, with the Mulan, especially compared to the Hercules. So I want to know where Rongyu is going with this, because that's where Sanguine's strength is. She is not necessarily a god that plays support that often as Mulan, so this is the wild card, so to speak, for what Barra and Awesome Jake are going to have to put up with.
Right, I mean, you play her over in the solo lane, you max that 2, you get some good damage, sustain yourself up in this lane as well. Has the 3, obviously, for some good lockdown if you connect with those arrows, so... I mean, I guess I can see that thought process, Score, but it is interesting to me that Sanguine feel that Cthulhu is stronger and you know, it's kind of what I'm getting at is Cthulhu's stronger in solo and Mulan maybe in some weird way is stronger in the support role. So I am very much excited to see what Rongyu is able to make work here out of the support role. And I do kind of want to talk about what we saw from Cthulhu in game number 1.
Yeah.
You know, Yarkor, I think, did have a good game. He was largely the damage leader throughout the early portions of it, but by the end of it, he would go big and then just kind of get melted down in similar ways to what Rongyu and Barracuda are having happen to them right now. Who finds the damage for first blood? It's Jake! This time, Netrioid left alone with the last 2 members of the Renegades chasing him down. Writing seemed to be on the wall there. Stun doesn't connect from Jake here this time, but the damage is still there from Barracuda. A couple more would have done it. Luckily for Netrioid, he's able to stay alive, but that was sort of the concern, wasn't it, in this long lane, that Hercules is just too strong to maybe compete against for Mulan.
Yeah, I think one of the things that catches me off guard, first off, is trying to fight a Hercules this early on. Even if you're another warrior, I just don't know it's going to work out that well for Mulan. But I think it does speak wonders. We've been talking about Rongyu picking that up, as how much Yarkor must love this Cthulhu, because there's no way he would give up the Mulan that was successful for him in the beginning. And I think we also get to see not only, again, the damage that Hercules can do this early on, but the reason Barracuda is going this build, right? Once again starts that tiny trinket like we saw in Game 1, but this harkens back to when Soul ADC or Soul Carry was, you know, a big thing that would go up against Hunters. You start with Lifesteal here as Netrioid, and this is going to allow Barracuda to keep up in terms of pace. It's something that I think is going to keep the Soul alive, going to keep her healthy, and then alongside the aggression from Awesome Jake, along with his ability to keep himself healthy, it just makes this a very tough-to-kill duo lane from the Renegades.
Yep. What we did see, though, I think, from Mulan there, was that she could turn around plenty of damage. Though she's somewhat susceptible to the knockback and the stun, doesn't have really a consistent escape, nearly killed Barracuda. And then Barracuda, I think, positioned very well in that minion wave to stay alive, sustained himself, and ended up turning that fight around. So, you know, the kill presence is there, I think, still from Rongyu. You've just got to be careful and time it correctly. But I think now we can kind of segue back to what we saw from the solo lane in the previous game. And Gore, admittedly, despite doing a good bit of damage by the end of it, it felt like Yarkor was kind of saying, all right, guys, look, I'm just going to walk in. I might end up dying through my ultimate, but as long as I'm, you know, confusing them and doing some damage, I'm doing my job.
I think that's realistically, I mean, how we're going to see a lot of this from Yarkor. Even again, I think, is if he's just get aggressive, right? Hey, if they kill me, it doesn't matter. That's all the damage they're dumping into me and not into, say, Netrioid, which I think last game, it was, you know, kind of the Shinto Netrioid's show. I mean, Panatom on that, Bakasura had some moments, but realistically it was just kind of jump in, distract for a little bit, die, and then see what Netrua and Shinto could do with whatever was left. Even at the very end, we saw him get Cerberus ulted and just eliminated, and didn't have any impact in the fight. So I think Panatom maybe in a better position on the Nemesis to show something off, but you're going to have to start picking it up soon.
Ven was here on the Cupid. There, maybe is a better way to word that. Under the eye was Panatom, who's able to dash his way away, double dash his way away. You know, and you look at Lasbro, who's now over here on this Arachne. I mean, I don't think he necessarily has something to prove, but I think this Arachne pick now has something to prove. We know it's strong, but we haven't seen it yet so far in Phase 2 of the SPL, but there's been so much talk about how strong this character is going to be, so you look for Lasbro to start to hit those few power curves and maybe start to make some ganks happen.
I'll be honest, I'm wondering if it's just because, one, well, he doesn't have the serrated edge online, which I think is where she starts that pop-off potential, although I think he would still have it now early on. Arachne can still hit pretty hard. But I also think there's just something to be said that the pressure has been so high for his team. And where does he gank? Maybe he can jump under the tower here for Yarkor, but for the most part, by the time he's able to rotate into a fight, they're already hiding if they're Sanguine, or retreating if they're Sanguine. The most he can do is try to turn that into some jungle aggression and steal some camps away.
Well, both junglers over here towards the solo lane. SOT might have been within kill threshold of Panatom rotating over. Had that big damage connected from Yarkor. Lasbro spotted out, and it looks like the blue buff will be safe for the time being for Sanguine. Though Lasbro is still somewhat hanging around. So, a lot of damage being exchanged there, but no kills as a result just yet. And Gore, we touched on Venenu just a moment ago. Obviously gone back to that Cupid in the mid lane. I think he was massive in keeping Renegades in the previous game there as well. Well, I don't think we really got a chance to talk about Shinto and how he really skyrocketed up those damage charts and showed that Persephone is banned out most of the time for a good reason.
That's the weird thing. It's so easy to kind of ignore Persephone. I mean, at this point right now, she's an ult. That's how I see her pre-level 16, 17. It's just, yeah, cool. If you hit that, that's sick. Maybe your damage follow-up's going to be awesome, but you don't see much of her this early on. And then all of a sudden, she just breaks through and becomes what we saw, that late-game powerhouse towards the end of last game. And I think that's honestly maybe exemplified even more here. She has a little bit of a level lead over this Cupid, but considering we just had a small buff to Cupid's clear that comes through, it allows Veneno here to keep pace. Virtually no problem. It is going to be the team fight impact. We talked about how big Fields of Love is and how great it can be. Heart Bomb, if you can land it onto 2 or 3 people, almost delivered by Ronghue a couple times last game to make it a big difference. Those are going to be maybe a little more difficult this time around. There is a heavenly agility on Ronghue this time around, so you're not going to be able to get an easy Fields of Love. And otherwise, it's just difficult lockdown.
To be the first big fight here, SOT will use his ultimate. Yarkor doesn't really care about it, and actually will get the kill instead. Lasbro weaving his web away from the engagement. 3-man rotation over to the solo lane. That's going to pick up the first kill here for Sanguine.
And Awesome Jake still obviously wants more. The rest of the team does not, but every Awesome Jake wants to continue going. And I think that's going to be, you know, maybe the feeling that we come forward with it is Jake unleashed for this game, right? And I think there's a lot of kind of bounce back ability, I think more or less that you can have. And Renegades still have more aggression, I think the ability to fight. But it showcases that it's not free right now. Very much like the last game wasn't free for them. And I think in a similar curve to the last game, Sanguine are going to come online a little bit later than where we see the Renegades starting to hit their marks. I mean, level 12, Cupid, especially once he finishes this Transcendence, I think will be a big part of these fights. Once this Ring of Hecate is done from Barracuda, he's going to start being a much bigger part of the fight, and you can follow up that aggression. Otherwise, you're looking at late-game Jingwei, still hits really hard. Same thing for Shinto.
That's right. Yeah, Netroid having to play the Jingwei isn't something you're all that sad about, and this is why. Barracuda catches all of that airstrike. Great body block from Jake to keep his carry alive, but it's at expense of his own life, and Netroid will end up picking up that kill. Looked like for a moment there, Renegades maybe had the opening for something good on their side, but Sanguine are able to turn it around. It's Pyromancer stolen by Yarkor. Bad to worse across the map for the Renegades. In both instances, they start something that they think looks good, and in both instances, they lose it.
While we were watching set 1, all I can remember Mifflin saying was, yeah, just go ahead and try to stand here, is the way Cthulhu runs it. And it seems like that's how Sanguine are running it right now. It's just lockdown after lockdown. A good snipe from Shinto. I said she's kind of an ult, and if he makes it work like that, then that's all you need.
Yeah, the long-range shot into the immediate dive there from Panatom was never going to go wrong. Venenu tried his best, popped the beads, popped the dash there, but unable to keep himself alive. This is a scary spot. Remember, really, Renegades were in game number 1. You'd maybe argue in the lead throughout the most part until a Fire Giant fight or 2. This is now a Sanguine team that's very calculated in the fights they take, that find themselves 2,000 or so gold in the lead, 11 minutes in here, Gormizer. It's not Renegades that are you know, again, it's similar to Game 1. It's not Renegades who aren't looking to start these types of objectives. They've looked for these fights. This time around, though, haven't quite paid off. Wrong you in range, tried to bait out that arrow there, but Barracuda will stay alive this time.
And I think Barra kind of realizing the difference between going that Typhon's Fang earlier that he had in Game 1 versus now. He just doesn't have the lifesteal.
It all happens so fast, and it's always Panatom who just kind of walks in. It's the purple buff invade gone right, I guess, this time around, and it's now this Nemesis who has affected 100% of the kill so far. Panatom 2-0-2, Brawler's beat stick right after that Golden Blade. You know, a lot of us, I don't know if we were Nemesis believers. We were seeing a lot of it in the SEC. Maybe this is why. The presence that she brings is undeniable here up to this point. Lasper trying to get something going for the Renegades here 12 minutes in. Instead, it's just taking damage from Netrioid on the back end. Panatom, Shinto, both rotating over from the mid lane. Could be a tier 1 tower dive looming large. Panatom drops the ultimate onto Jake. Gonna use the dash back onto Panatom. But Shinto will hit the shot that he needs to, and down goes Jake once more. Sanguine have been methodical for 12.5 minutes, and now pull themselves yet another kill ahead.
So Game 1, we had said that the draft went towards Sanguine, but the play was in favor of Renegades. This time, I think it's kind of the opposite, where the draft is, in my eyes, a little bit more in favor of Renegades, but through and through, Sanguine are just playing at the level we expect from them now. And Barra, I mean, this is just a bad spot. Disapparate can only get you so far.
Fields of Love will sustain him a little bit further and actually maybe set up the kill on Netrioid. And the explosion gets him, so there's a silver lining for the Renegades. SOT is rotated over, ultimate down onto Panatom, and down goes the jungler. So a well-timed rotation from the Renegades is actually going to pull back quite a few kills there. It's looking dire for a few moments, but now the solo laner's getting involved and giving the Renegades a ray of hope.
And I think a case in point, a great example of Caster's Curse. Sanguine just overstayed their welcome at that point. They're doing really well, and they just tried to continue to do really well. Unfortunately, they didn't have, I think, the exact cooldowns in their favor, and I think that Renegades read the situation pretty well there. Disapparate, I thought, was going to be unfortunate, and it was, but Venenu was able to pick up the scraps. Solar Troll, I think, being a much bigger part of a lot of these engagements as well. Jake, just as aggressive as he is, again, 1 and 2. I think it's going to be the teamwork Renegades have right now that's going to rival Sanguine's overall. And the draft plays well into it when they group together, much like they just did. It's just going to be, how often are you able to find those moments, right? How often are you going to be able to get the Heart Bomb, Fields of Love, you know, chase down Netrioid and force him out of there? And those maybe start to line up a little bit fewer and far in between. Especially now that Atalanta's bow is online here for Netrioid, it's going to allow him to have a little bit more mobility and jukeability, I guess is the other word I can coin here for him, when it comes down to steamrolling some kills for the team.
It's a fancy footwork for Netrioid that's gotten him a couple of kills and only 1 death. The push from Sanguine into the Renegade side of the jungle was short-lived, but looking for a little bit extra. Covering the entrance over to that purple buff, actually 1 lone ward all the way down to see if the Renegades are moving towards that purple buff, and it's going to maybe open up a gank later on. Jake has made his way back in behind Netrioid here. Would be wishful thinking maybe to win a fight here at this point, given where Barracuda and Netrioid are respective of one another, but won't end up going for the kill there. I've loved this roaming kind of death ball, I suppose, from Sanguine, though. It's been these immediate rotations over to moments like this. A Gold Fury started by the Renegades, and Sanguine immediately there to answer, and might end up actually taking down the Gold Fury as well. Venenu, Fields of Love down. Shinto catches the ultimate, and the Gold Fury falls, and Sanguine have it in their pockets. Rongyu takes half of his HP. Lasbra maybe re-engaging. Netrioid finishes off Awesome Jake. A barrage of damage down from Barracuda. Panatom and Rongyu, though, a little bit too low to fight. Venenu gets rid of Sanguine's jungler. Lasbra on the wrong side of the map here is going to have to blink his way a touch further away from the fight. Yarkor just trying to play separator. SOT will get the kill as well. The Cerberus rotations have been on point here for the Renegades, but Shinto, he's still alive and he's got so much damage. It's Venenu trying to sustain himself. Yarkor doing his best to plug him down. It's a split engagement here, Gormizer. Almost too much to keep up with. Shinto will take down Lasbra. SOT was going to fall as well to Yarkor, Venenu. Awesome Jake, the last two left alive. And I think Jake just respawned, as a matter of fact. And Yarkor and Shinto are there as well. I think that's a 4 versus 3. Thank God for the team fight recap. Sanguine get the Fury and 1 extra kill.
I honestly think, yeah, much bigger overall for Sanguine. That extra kill maybe being like the garnish on top of the dish that is the Gold Fury and the clean fight, but it's a little all over the place from both teams there. Not quite sure who everyone wants to dive in on, not where the focus is, who exactly feels confident trying to kill whom on the other team. Like, you're just bouncing around all over the place. So I think good call for Sanguine, and maybe a little bit of luck in there as well to make sure that Gold Fury goes their way. And the fight just happens to, again, be the garnish on top of it that makes it look much more appetizing for them. Unfortunately, you keep finding yourself in positions like this where maybe you bite off a little more than you can chew. You have to use a lot of relics there, at least your beads there if you're Panatom, which isn't going to be too great for the next team fight.
Oh no, Rongyu has locked down Jake here. Yarkor in the middle lane as well. Nice dodge from Panatom on the back end. The root will not connect under the Hercules here, but seems like the days of this mid lane tier 1 tower are numbered. Lasbra's had sort of a quiet start to this game, all things considered. 2-1-1, 2-2-5 for his counterpart over on Sanguine's side. He'll have a chance to maybe increase those numbers here with Yarkor actually using his ultimate. Lasbra immediately turns away. Knock up onto the Arachne. The rest of Renegades peeling away from this fight as well. Ultimate used by the Spider to stay alive. Just the presence of this Cthulhu core is enough to make you turn and run.
Well, you know, it's the largest thing you're going to see barreling down at you in the jungle. It's like one of those few things you're not going to, be mistaken. You know Yarkor is coming. There's just not much you can do about it. And now you're in this position. You know his ult is down. Maybe you can get aggressive, and it seems like Renegades are on that same wavelength. Good stun to start it off.
Got Rongyu, but look at that ultimate. 3 men knocked up from the Renegades. SOT cannot match those numbers. Panatom so close to finishing off the solo laner, and he does end up getting the kill. Barracuda, though, has traded out a couple. This is actually a winning fight for the Renegades at the moment. Heart Bomb over onto Yarkor, who tries to dash away, unable to do so, won't be stunned. Stays alive. It's Pyromancer plus a kill in exchange for 2 kills straight up for the Renegades.
Even though he's not on Freya, Netrioid still screams priority target for me, and I think that's exactly what Renegades are trying to do.
Oh!
In the last team fight that went 4 in their favor, it was a little bit bigger, but you still have to be careful. You can't let Panatom just run rampant. And you have to make sure that you're not getting too aggressive, because it's still a Nemesis. She's still going to hit incredibly hard, and she will lock you down if you're Cupid. Your dash can only save you so much, and it doesn't seem like Panatom has any worries at all. I mean, he knows your ult is down. You used it on him just a few minutes before, and he used his beads for it. So Venenu has to keep that kind of in mind when they're getting aggressive, or at this point, I would say even trying to fall back there for Renegades.
I mean, that's on me. I didn't even know Panatom was still back there. I mean, a quick look at the minimap would have told me, but Renegades didn't have the utility to save their mid laner there. Yarkor continues to be a threat here this game, Gore. Top of the damage charts, him and Shinto have been juggling up for that top spot back and forth, and this actually might be a good catch out from Rongyu here. Netrioid not quite in range to finish off the damage. But the scales, it seems, have really shifted here in this long lane, Gore. Early on, remember, it was Jake that was kind of dominating things. But Rongyu has found his footing 20 minutes in, and maybe you'd argue has made a bigger impact as of late.
I mean, this entire Mulan pick is hinged on that exactly, right? It's every single time. Rongyu, if he misses any of these plucks, then this pick means nothing. He's 3 levels down and it means nothing to the game. He has hit almost every single one of these on everyone he's looking for, and even though sometimes, much like that one, it might not be resulting in a kill, it's just impressive to see what he's been able to do, turning this warrior into a support.
Renegades continue their aggressive shot calling here. Primal Fury started up, Primal Fury finished off. A sigh of relief I can only imagine from the Renegades here, that they're able to lock down that Fury. Because shades of Game 1 have carried over here to Game 2, where the Renegades are the ones kind of poking their head in, starting off a lot of these objectives, even looking for a lot of these fights. It just hasn't gone as consistently well as they had there for them in Game number 1. And now you look, I think, at Shinto as well, Gore. I mean, flew under the radar despite top damage in Game 1, now full build minus that Blessing Obsidian Shard to round things out. You got to find a way, I think, equally to get onto Netroid, as you brought up, as you do on Shinto.
I think they have a much easier path back there, though, right? I mean, Jake, you can push into him. Cerberus, you can jump back there towards the back line. Like, Yarkor, as well as Rongyu, are going to kind of have to play Peel in a lot of these team fights more than they're going to be able to play Aggressor for a lot of them. If you catch someone out, if you happen to be in good positioning, which Sanguine does pretty often, so honestly, you might see it happen here, you can start the fight on your own terms, and you can be the aggressors, but if it's Renegades, I mean, Lasbra jumps into the backline. Venenu, if he is feeling really risky, can dash into the backline. But Fields of Love, again, long deploy range, very wide radius, so you are able to connect onto someone. And Barrow with Disapparate doesn't have to worry too much if he gets caught out. So Renegades can play it on their own terms, and I think that's opening up the door for them to be just more free-flowing in their team fight, and I honestly think it pays them a little bit better in the late game here when it turns into this 5v5. It just does come down to those little micro decisions where you jump in and if you're Lasper. Are you using your ult as an engage or a disengage? And if you use it as an engage, are you sure it's going to work out for you? Because otherwise you're stuck, down the creek without a paddle. And you really have to worry about, how you're, starting these engagements off if you're Renegades. But all in all, the terms of engagement, I think, are still on their end.
Sanguine, they're going to look for that engagement over onto SOT here. He's had a rough go of things on the Cerberus. He's found value, I think, T being SOT, in the Cerberus pick in games throughout, phase 1 of the SPL. He's been kind of one of the only solo laners, I think, that's kind of latched onto the Cerberus pick, and I think he's done a decent job, as you point out, of kind of getting in that back line, trying to burn beads, get somebody to dash away from the ultimate. It just hasn't quite been as consistent as maybe a lot of what Sanguine has been able to provide. Lasbra thinking he's maybe found a kill on a Netroid, but not to be. Rongyu caught out a little bit here by SOT. He's going to turn around some damage of his own. So a little bit of poking and prodding, Gore. Not to be surprised with the way both of these teams are playing, but push comes to shove, and it's Barracuda that has to burn a lot to stay alive here. Yarkor gets rid of Venenu. Barracuda back around the corner, still alive. No way Yarkor survives this one. Instead, he's going to turn around and go back in. He's got the support of the rest of his squad here. And look at Panatom. He's found the backline. He's found the kill. Over onto Barracuda. A couple more autos. Maybe nets him the triple kill here. Sidesteps the stun from both Jake and SOT. Lasbra maybe helping turn around a kill earlier on in that engagement. But it's a 2-for-1 for Sanguine. Now the right side is looking nervous.
I think the fact that Panatom is getting consistent damage in the backline is great, and I also think something should be said about Yarkor's Cthulhu. Not only is it evident that he likes playing this god, he's damn good at it as well. Bringing Cthulhu in, specifically in the solo lane, no one has been doing that except for Sanguine so far. And, you go to set 1 yesterday, Cthulhu banned out. Set 2 yesterday, set 1 today, Cthulhu's in the support role because he can be maybe more impactful in those team fights early on. But right now, Yarkor is giving him a better win rate than we've gotten to see out of him in the support role. And I think the presence he still brings in these late game team fights is more than worthwhile, that early game curve of not having him.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting conversation we all sort of had where, on one hand, he might not be as involved in the early game as he is, but he also reaches that level 20 and usually that full build mark earlier than he would if he were in the support role. So maybe you're levying a little bit of the early game to get him online a touch faster. At least that's maybe what Sanguine's mindset is on the matter. 3-0-3 for Yarkor up to this point. A rare miss on the arrow from Rongyu might have been disastrous for Awesome Jake. Fury is respawning here in the next 15 seconds, Gormizer, and despite what is now a 6,000 gold deficit, Renegades don't seem to be shying away from some of these objective fights.
You know what's bad, Dave? I know
What's
that we could be sitting here and have all this fun theory as to why Yarkor, or why it's fitting in the solo lane. At the end of the day, if you ask Sanguine, Yarkor would just go, yeah, I really like it. And like, that's it. That's
good,
the only
right?
reason. There's nothing, no depth to it at all. It is just, yeah, he likes playing it over there. And you know, sometimes I guess that is all you need. Because right now, Renegades, they need something big. A team fight in their favor would pay off, because this gold lead has been just massive in favor of Sanguine. It's a Primal Fury, so it's not really the end of the world if you lose this one. But the fight that happens thereafter, and specifically maybe where Lasber goes with this one, he's the one that's been turning these around. My eyes are on him to make the play.
Well, the XP is even. Maybe the biggest differentiator here is Jake has not been able to go back, so he's 2/3 of an item behind Rongyu on that Mulan, at least item-wise. Still Barracuda just slinging some autos, thinking about leashing maybe the Fury. Panatom and Laz were both eyeing one another on the backside of the Fury pit, but how else would one of these fights start except for Yarkor going big, walking into the backline, forcing Veneno to use both of his actives, and then getting the kill nonetheless. And then wandering out alive with 10% of his HP. SOT has something to say about it though, but you can't pull back the Cthulhu here. It's a 4v5. Shinto finds the shot, but good beads usage there. It's going to get the Renegades out of a lot of that root. Yarkor limping away from this engagement. 1 kill is all we have to show for it.
It's only 1 kill, but it's 3, maybe about 4 effective kills. Lasber the only one who's able to really stick around.
TKO.
Barra has to go and farm. Yeah, everybody else has to fall back to base to try and heal up. So Sanguine open up a lot of space and a little more pressure on the map because of the low health bars there from Renegades. And Yarkor's walking out of these alive. And I feel like that sentence just speaks on its own for what all it's been accomplishing for him. I mean, the fact that he's able to get in there, I mean, you called it perfectly. You go in, you ult down, you force Vin to use, relics to keep himself alive, abilities, everything in his kit to try and stay alive there. And at the end of the day, he still ends up dead, waiting and watching the game in grayscale. He hopes that his team's able to pick something up. And, I mean, he's gone for the same build. I think it still has, again, similar benefits to what we saw out of it last time. The same thing can be said for what Barracuda is doing here. But I think Netrioid, again, maybe it's a comfort pick, maybe it's the crit that's coming through as well. Jingwei is running pretty much the exact same way you would have expected. I think Panatom is causing a lot of disruption. But 9 times out of 10 right now, it is the Cthulhu that's making the difference. He is the make or break for Sanguine. If you can kill Yarkor faster, then it might be the result in turning this game right back into your favor for Renegades.
Well, look, I mean, I'm the one now with egg on my face. We're talking about Yarkor and the Cthulhu a couple of minutes into this game, and I'm thinking, well, yeah, I mean, he kind of wandered into the Renegades a couple of times, but they just sort of killed him. He's doing the same thing, but they're not killing him consistently. They're not killing Yarkor consistently this game, as they were able to in game number 1. That maybe is giving Sanguine the confidence now to start up this Fire Giant. Half HP remaining on the Beast as Rongyu is playing front line as well as Yarkor here. The double dash through. Panatom drops down the ultimate over onto Barracuda. No beads to save the Soul's life this time, but he does have Aegis if need be. Unable to pop it as Yarkor has a double kill. You gotta be kidding me. The Cthulhu absolutely running wild around this Fire Giant pit. The rest of the Renegades have looked for an opening onto the backline of Sanguine and pulled down Shinto with them, but SOT left stumbling, double stun on the mantle. A double kill for Panatom. That's 2 for Yarkor as well, and it's Jake left alone.
This one's actually pretty easy to slice down. When it comes down to it, which team is getting into the back line and killing them off consistently? Sanguine. Which team is winning the team fights? Sanguine, because of all of that. And it is on the back of a phenomenal performance here so far from Yarkor. I mean, 6-0-5, you called it out, a double kill in that fight, being able to get Barra and Venenu. Unfortunately for SOT, for Jake, honestly, even Lasber was in that fight. Oh, no. They collapse in onto Panatom, they get Netrioid, they get Shinto, and they only walk away with one of them. Now, it's just kind of like playing with your food, it feels like, and how long it takes him to get rid of Awesome Jake. He is staggered out. It's a full minute without him before you're going to have that second tank alive. This is a 4v5 effectively for Renegades, and I don't think any of these towers are going to stand long.
Yeah, don't think so. There's no more remaining over in the short lane. No more towers in the mid lane, and now just a tier 2 tower that will easily be tanked up by Yarkor. Yarkor is eating damage for breakfast. I don't think a tier 2 tower is going to worry him all that much as the rest of Sanguine move their way onto the long lane side of the map. I think smart plays here from Venenu and Lasberg. Just try to push out these lanes as best as possible. You know where everyone from Sanguine is. They're going to be successful in doing so. But I think as much as we've talked about Yarkor Gore, and you know, we've heaped praise on Shinto and Netrioid, they're doing a lot of good damage. Rongyu has made this Muon look good. I think Panatom has had a wonderful game on this Nemesis, affecting 17 out of these 20 kills. Even picked up a wing blade, now a stone cutting sword. I mean, it's sort of, I'm not even going to call it hybrid, really. It's just the bubble and the winged blade that are kind of off damagey items for Panatom. But the value has been absolutely through the roof in these backline dives.
The unsung hero, because, like you said, we're not singing the praises for him. 8-2 and 9, like, again, very effective in a lot of these fights. And I think because of his efficacy and what he's been able to do in terms of damage back onto the Cupid, onto the Soul, onto the Arachne, honestly, even onto Solar Rochol and Awesome Jake here because of his protection shred, it makes him a valuable target. The problem is he's living through so much of this. Maybe a little bit is the hybridization that you kind of pointed out in his build down there. Maybe a lot of it is the shield, and his dash is keeping him alive. But I think the fact that he's been able to be so important in this game has come out with 8 kills. Maybe, yeah, some of the damage is being done by Netrioid, but he's the one sticking to them like glue and following it up. And then maybe it isn't this big, flashy Cthulhu ult that is, let's admit it, very distracting to see, very easy to focus in on in game. I think he is coming out 1 to 2 kills every single fight, and because of that, he has been maybe even more of a backbone to this than Yarkor because of how important he has been, and specifically keeping Shinto and Netrioid alive in terms of self-peel.
It's brutal for the Renegades here at this point, and Oni Fury now taken down by Sanguine. So any wave positioning you thought you had are immediately going to get mitigated now that you don't have the ability to step out of your base. Maybe you make the argument that it is going to be a little bit harder for Panatom to now move his way into this backline. Very linear fights here, all one lane. You just kind of have to walk into the back, or maybe you get a pull over onto SOT. That could start things out. Instead, Panatom and Yarkor are going to have no problem walking into the backline. Shinto has no problem in finishing off the damage. Panatom gets one onto Barracuda. Suddenly it's 3 members of the Renegades left alive and defending. Venenu drops down the Fields of Love, but look at the airstrike up and over from Netrioid. Yarkor says bye-bye to Venenu, and the Renegades are going to walk their way in 33 minutes and complete, or Sanguine rather, going to walk their way in 33 minutes and complete the 2-0 over the Renegades.
I mean, this comes down to one consistency, and you know what? I was trying to veer away from it. I wanted to talk more about Panatom. He has a good fight there. Netrioid, the crit damage numbers, they're insane through that game. But at the end of the day, there's one consistency throughout every single team fight at the end there, and it is Cthulhu walks in, Cthulhu causes everyone to panic, and that's exactly what Yarkor was able to do. I think switching him over to the solo lane, he's had a much more effective late game than what we've gotten to see out of the last few sets, and so far it seems like Sanguine have figured something out. Again, it's their meta to play. We know their 5v5 is good from the beginning of the year, so I'm excited to see him keep going.
Well, I get to talk to Yarkor here in a little bit, so I'll ask what kind of the power curve is between solo lane and support Cthulhu there. Certainly looks good time and time again here in this set, and the number 1 seed from Phase 1 rolls in their first game of Phase 2, 2-0 over the Renegades. And with that, we'll go back to Finch and Myth to wrap up the day.
We said that Sanguine had earned the benefit of the doubt. They absolutely proved it here. A 2-0 and fairly dominant victory to start off for Sanguine. And after 2 days of competitive action, we finally get to see Cthulhu's rise here in this second game as well, Mifflin. What do you make here of what we saw from all this action? Because I don't think it was just the Cthulhu. We saw Shinto playing very well in the Persephone. We saw Panatom playing the Nemesis very well here as well, too. A lot of value, I think, being brought out of Sanguine here in this second game.
I mean, there's nothing I could say about it that people at home aren't already thinking, right? Persephone's a good character. Name another god that's just going to kill you post-mortem. I'll wait. It won't happen. She's got essentially a self-revive for a little bit there, and he got huge value out of it. Cthulhu, I won't understate the value that Cthulhu solo got. As much as it pains me to say it to exactly you, Finch, but the damage output, the displacement, he popped ultimate, and the Renegades had to run, but they couldn't because they were knocked up over and over and over again.
Yeah, I think what we're seeing now is that Cthulhu is just good in both of those roles here at this point, right? But he was dominant really from all of Sanguine here in this game. We said in Game 1 that we felt like Renegades was the team that had played better, Mifflin, that we liked them running back the composition. And Austin Jake had a good very beginning to this game with the Hercules, but after that, it felt basically all Sanguine. What was the big turning point for them? Was it really just the Cthulhu, or was it a big team effort?
I felt like Renegades weren't respecting Cthulhu solo nearly enough. A lot of the fights that started to swing in favor of Sanguine were fought on the other side of the map towards the soul lane, despite Gold Fury being available, but despite the fact that they could have just fought in the duo side and ignored the Cthulhu for as long as they could, and it just put Yarkor ahead and allowed him to rotate out a little bit earlier on than I'm sure Renegades would have liked. Short of that, again, it's gotta be the drafting phase. Sanguine said that they want to play the good characters, and, well, they're doing it. The only even remote question mark on their draft is that Mulan, and even then, it worked out pretty well. Nemesis has been a very popular pick. Persephone has been just about perma-banned. Cthulhu's been shown to be incredibly dominant. Sanguine are going to take whatever you're willing to give them.
And I think that at this point, I have to admit that I'm wrong on this Nemesis pick, man. I was not a believer, but these first 2 days of the SPL have absolutely brought me around. And it doesn't just have to be the crit build for her either. Panatom's showing that you can go a more attack speed or more ability-type focus build too and get a lot of work done. I mean, you were saying to me behind the scenes, you didn't even particularly like Nemesis into this draft, but Panatom was just making it work.
He was. It's not that I didn't like Nemesis into the Renegades draft. I think that Nemesis is a god that really requires a huge amount of CC to really make her work, because she generally has none. And I think I was probably just undervaluing what Yarkor was able to do. I mean, by the time the late game team fight rolled around, he won the fight before he was done ulting, and Nemesis was just allowed to run around for free. That might just be a pretty sick wombo combo with those two gods.
Worth mentioning a pretty lackluster game from Lasbra as well in that Arachne. A lot of things to clean up here, I think, for Renegades, who did look strong today but had an underwhelming performance. But on the other side, though, Sanguine have to be feeling good after their victory. So I'll get it down to Dolson and Yarkor to see how they're feeling.
That's right, Yarkor is with me. The first Vamos moment of phase number 2 here for you guys, Yarkor. Big congratulations for the 2-0 win. I am curious, though, how important do you think it is for you guys, or was for you guys, to get this win here today and start off this phase on the right foot?
It's always so good to starting off with a win. It gives you a good look at where we think the meta is going to go. So we are confident that the things that we're picking and banning are good. So we're not picking bad gods or drafting bats. That is the main important thing. So pretty good too.
Yeah, I don't think anyone is gonna blame you for picking Cthulhu in back-to-back games, and I would get yelled at, I think, if I didn't ask you. One, first of all, obviously you prioritize Cthulhu very highly. Kind of more specifically though, we've seen Cthulhu in support, we've seen Cthulhu in solo. Why do you guys maybe like Cthulhu over in that solo lane a little bit better?
We already tried it in 3 different roles, the Cthulhu. So, I mean, I was the one that just played it the best, so we decided I'm going to be big Cthulhu, I'm going to play Cthulhu. That's the thing.
I have to ask, what was the third role? Solo, support, and what else got the Cthulhu nod?
You
don't have to. Okay, you don't have to tell me. You don't have to tell me. I am very curious, though. All right, you don't have to tell me. That's right. It's a secret pick maybe for you guys later on. Were you at all surprised, though? I kind of, turned some attention towards that middle lane. Were you at all surprised at the fact that Persephone made it her way through back-to-back games there?
Yeah, it was weird, for us after that first game. I think that the first game, I did nothing that game. And used Frey and Persephone, Chinto and Nitro used carry us entirely that game. So I was surprised that they didn't buy actually Persephone. I mean, or pick it because they were
Right.
first pick, but I guess they have like a strategy, but just didn't work today for them.
Hey, well, in a league where a lot of these teams are trying to figure out the meta, what works, what doesn't work, you guys have found something that at least did work for you guys here on day number 1. Big congrats to you. We'll see you back in action against SSG in a few days' time. Yarkor, thanks for talking with me, and best of luck in the future. We'll go back to the desk to finish things off.
Genuinely always a joy to get to hear from those Sanguine guys. Hard not to root for them when they sound like that. Obviously got some secrets with the Cthulhu, and a surprise as all of us that some of those picks got to make it through so often, but a great start here for Sanguine after a great phase 1 as well. Mifflin, now we get the honor of wrapping things up here on day number 2. We did see 2-2-0s, maybe a little bit surprising considering how competitive these matches should have been, but I think the people who are on top of the meta to start with are going to be the ones that keep getting these wins.
Yeah, I think that we're going to see a lot of the same placements that we saw in Phase 1. I mean, Sanguine, Space Station, Ghost, and Radiance are going to be top 4 in my books. These guys are looking absolutely dominant, and they continue to look so in Phase 2. I'm sorry if I'm laughing a little bit. I could tell that Sanguine might have been a little bit confused by Renegade's draft there because Yarkor said, I guess they had a strategy. It's just funny wording for me.
A little toxic, maybe, but hey, I mean, I think you got to be with him, right? A lot of the best stuff made it through, and it is a bit surprising, but I agree. I don't think Renegades are the type of team that let that stuff through without having thought it through. It just didn't quite work this time. Here's a look at the schedule. You know what you can expect tomorrow here. Mifflin Ghost and E United to start things off, then Renegades and Obey playing again. I think that Renegades Obey set is kind of a sneaky good one. Very close matchup, I'm thinking, and we might even be seeing Obey pick up their first dub here of the phase. We'll have to wait till see till around 5 o'clock on Sunday, but some big games coming up tomorrow.
They really are. I'm really looking forward to this Obey set, man, especially after I eat a vote loss on the first day. You guys got to warn me if we're going to keep track of these votes. Obey's got to make my money back, essentially, here. They owe me a win, but Renegades aren't going to make it easy because they looked especially strong in Game 1 today.
That's a great point. They did look strong here up against Sanguine in Game 1. Maybe a little bit of struggles there in Game 2 as Sanguine got back into a rhythm. But what we really saw, I think, is that it's important to be on top of these new picks. You can't just come in and play the same stuff you're playing in Phase 1 and expect it to work. And you can't do the same thing in your games either. So make sure you're right back here at 3 p.m. Eastern to watch the SPL tomorrow. See exactly what the pros are up to so you can put it to work in your casual games. For the other casters, though, for production, everyone else that makes the show happen, we appreciate y'all, and we will see you tomorrow.